This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Calling to order the meeting of the Southampton Select Board for March 4th, 2025 at 6:01 p.m. If we could start by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. Do we have anyone here for citizen speak? Anyone who's not got an issue on the agenda? You do, okay. Please stand up and give us your name and address, where you live, basically, and what your issue is. So we have a microphone up here, so speak a little bit. You can stand up wherever you'd like. But yeah.
My name is Margaret Carenzo. I'm sorry, my voice, I'm just getting it back. I live at 17 Cottage Ave. And I'm having an issue with the Board of Health, trying to condemn my house because they want to put an illegal tight tank next door on a new construction. I'm not sure if you're familiar with 19 Cottage Ave, but I bought my house 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago, with a government loan. And it was all inspected, Title V's, my water was tested, everything was all legal, and no problems for all this time. And for 10 years or more, I had sewage leaking from 19 Cottage Ave. The sewage would back up into their house, and they would go out back and dig holes so that it would drain. And it would drain into my yard. So, and I'm sure there's record of me calling and them coming out, and there's pictures, and so they couldn't do anything. So eventually I just put a patio over it in a fenced garden area so my kids and animals couldn't get near it. And we went on complaining over the years because it was a drug house, and yeah, they used to do some things. So now Chad Alexander bought the property, and it was asbestos. That's why we didn't purchase the property. It's very tiny. It's a very tiny lot. And he owns the property adjacent to it. He purchased that one as well. And he has tenants that live there. And that house is also in very poor repair. It has beams coming through the roof. It has, it's like the tenants that live there have to take their dishwater and their bath water and dump it into the yard because their tight tank can't handle everything going through. So we did go to the Board of Health and address this issue. And so Chad Alexander wanted to put another tight tank in next to me. So this is what I have the problem with. And now the Board of Health is saying, I keep saying my water is contaminated, but I've proven it's not. I did give them a clean water test. They said they didn't want us to complete the water test because the water test people said that it was so clean that they didn't need to finish it, but they would if they wanted it. And they said no. And they agreed that we would wait till spring. The problem I've had is the tight tank and the people that maintain it, or lack of maintenance, that is polluting the area. And that was my concern with my well. I never said my well was contaminated. I said that the house next door was contaminating my property. And I was worried about it contaminating my well at the time. But it's been dry there for several years, and it's been wonderful. I just don't want that back. If the people who buy that property do not maintain that well, that tight tank, here it comes again. And to what degree? And so that's what I've been. Kanicki is friends with Chad Alexander.
We don't.
Well, I have him on my Ring video telling me so.
Let's keep
he
this
came
in.
over to my property and convinced me to go on the down water and Chad was paying for it. Now, why else would Chad pay for it? I mean, and why would Charles Kanicki be over at my property convincing me to go on? And has never helped me with the sewage problem, but now is coming after my well, trying to shut me down. So they have to go. I don't have, we're going on public water. There's not a, he wants it by March 1st. And I called Friday and I told him, if you can dig that trench, you come over and you dig it, you put it in. And so and as a result, I got a court demand today. And so that's why we're here. We just need to stop Charles Kanicki. It's a personal vendetta. I called the Ethics Commission and they advised me to come and see you. And I did send an email. And someone, Scott Sabick, was supposed to give me a call back, but I didn't.
I owe you a call.
Yeah, I'm sure you were busy, so that's why we came. And we just want this. I'm sick. I mean, I'm not well. I'm disabled, and I just want to be left in peace. I finally got that property dry because they wouldn't help me. And now they want to put another tight tank in on a new construction, which is illegal. You can't put a tight tank on a new construction. And not only that, the lot is so small. And they're not doing anything about Chad Alexander's other property. They're not requiring a Title V on his septic. They're not requiring any inspections on his properties. Next door to me is another well. They're not requiring them to hook up to town water. Not that we're not going to go on town. We are going on town water
Okay.
as soon as it thaws.
Right.
But we can't do it by March 1st. I mean, and we all agreed when we went to the Board of Health meeting, you were there, I believe, and we all agreed to wait till spring, right? So that, I mean, we got no problem with getting a Title V on ourselves. We maintain our property.
Okay.
I mean, we have it regularly. It was just emptied in August. So, I mean, we have no problem with anybody inspecting our property. We have no problem with hooking up. The original problem was they wanted to dig up my driveway because they thought the hookup was under the driveway. They thought it might be under the driveway. And they wanted to dig that up. And I wouldn't allow that. So at that Board of Health meeting, they agreed to go through the street, go through my yard, and we agreed. So it's
Okay, well, thank you.
crazy.
We allow usually about 5 or 6
Oh, I'm
minutes
sorry.
for open time. So
I
this is
know,
the first we're hearing about it
story.
at the select board level. So thank you for presenting it. I think we would have to touch base with the Board of Health ourselves and find out more details about this and just understand what the issue is from their
Right.
perspective.
Unfortunately, we're
so-
in a time constraint.
I'll talk to Charlie tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
I
see.
think there might have been a miscommunication
Okay.
on hooking up to town water.
Okay, okay.
No, there's no miscommunication. He's being a smart aleck. He's
Well,
laughing
please,
at us and everything.
we're not going to do name calling. I've let you suggest his name, though I should not have actually even done that. We can keep it to the title of the person in terms of the Board of Health
Okay.
agent, okay?
Yeah.
But we're not getting into personal attacks and name calling and so forth. So we will follow up,
Yeah, I have
With the Board of
everything on
Health,
video in my
and-
house. I have cameras everywhere.
and I'm sure they've got their records too, so we'll
Yeah.
follow up with them and find out what we can learn from it.
I would
And,
really appreciate that because, like I said, I'm sick. I don't want to have to keep going to court, and I don't want to have to deal with this. It's all paid for. We signed to have it put in. No one's ever called us to have it installed.
Okay.
So, and that's what I told them on Friday as well. I
Okay.
said, if you think you can, come on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Yep. Okay, anyone else for open time? Okay, if not, let us go into the actual agenda tonight. We have a couple of appointments, and we'll run through these. Scott, you've actually got them up on the board. Would someone like to read one of these? I don't care. Yeah, Cindy, go ahead.
It looks like a new appointment of Carl Cushy to the Senior Center Building Committee, and the term will expire June 30, 2027. Are we talking about each
Yeah,
one
let's
separately?
just do one at a time, okay? All right, we have a little bit of background from him. I believe he's been a carpenter, and I know this has gone through the Senior Center Building Committee, and they have given they're okay with the idea. He's attended a couple of their meetings, so they're familiar with who he is. Could we have that as a motion, Cindy, and then I'll take a second.
So I move that we appoint Carl Cushy to the Senior Center Building Committee effective immediately with his term to expire June 30 of 2027.
Second.
All right. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next one, Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. It's, as the planning board representative from the select board, it's my great honor to make the request that we appoint James Labrie to the planning board until our next town election, which is May 20th, 2025. That's the motion.
All right. And for those that may not know, Jim has served on the planning board before for a number of years. He's also been on the select board in the past. So he's decided he wants to come back onto planning board. So that would be something that I know planning board chair has also followed up and recommended that as well. So that be a motion, Dan?
Yes, it is.
All right. Second. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
So, can I do
And
that?
I'll do the last, third one. Janet Kane resignation from the Southampton Housing Authority, effective May 1, 2025.
Second.
All right. And I know Janet's stepping down to do various other things, and so this is an elected position, and we need to have the resignation on file so that we can, Lucy already knows about it, so she can put it on a ballot as it's an elected office.
Is
All
that
right.
before the term ends?
This will be, it will be, because it has to be on the ballot.
Oh, okay, so it's just a timing thing?
It is a timing thing, yeah. So because the election will be May 20-something, I forget the date, on the town election. It'll be the third Tuesday, I think it is, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, so this gives enough time to get the word out that there will be an open seat. Okay. All right, so I'll make that motion that we accept the resignation of Janet Kane from the Housing Authority effective May 1st, 2025.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, so passed. Next, town reports. Scott?
The last 2 weeks have really only been land use planning, budget, and special town meeting. So
Isn't it?
we'll go into it a little bit later, but those were the big three things that we've been working on, so not much to report.
All right, we know you've been busy trying to figure out all the numbers, that's for sure. So, and thanks for putting together all these budget packages and having these joint meetings. I think the Finance Committee has been very, very organized and very helpful this year so far. So good. All right, any select board reports? Dan, anything planning?
Yeah, yesterday we had the Conservation Commission meeting. I think the one thing to note is I know they've talked to the Open Spaces Committee, or people who approach the Open Spaces Committee about a property near Wolf Hill that we're interested in adding. So I think that's all involves Kestrel, part of the project, switching out one of the properties. So I think that it's important for this group to mention that. Besides that, for Concom, there's a little talk about the bridge again, so I think we're ready for that, but I think that project's really the town level now.
Right, yeah.
So that's that. And the planning board, so we have, we'll talk about the alternate for that later on. So I think that's about all I have to say.
The Board of Health has not met since the last time I gave a report. The Open Space Committee has met, and we've had conversations regarding several properties in town. First of all, the Mountain Waters projects, there was an extension of the state Mountain Waters grant, usually would end at the end of the fiscal year, but they've agreed to extend to the end of the calendar year, so that's beneficial. Two of the original properties that were presented have withdrawn for various reasons. Therefore, there is some funding available that has already been agreed to by the state in terms of the Landscape Partnership Grant, as well as CPA monies. However, if we are changing properties, we will have to go back to town meeting to state there's a variation in what specific properties are involved. Dan made reference to something, and this is going to be a joint report from Open Space Committee as well as from assessors. We do have an application to withdraw property on Fulmer Road owned by a couple named Jeffrey and Carolyn Florick for 2 different lots, and they own a larger portion of property, probably in the 20-acre range, that only 2 of the lots on the frontage are listed as withdrawal from chapter land. In the meantime, they met with members of the Open Space Committee, myself being one, as well as with Kestrel Land Trust Conservation Manager, and expressed an interest in seeing the back portion of the property, which is closer to Alder Pond, limited amount of frontage, and maybe would there be a way to see conservation of this property, which would result in becoming acquired by the town, utilizing the monies, or at least most of the monies that are available through the Landscape Partnership Grant, which is called the Mountain Waters Project. A little bit confusing. They have been really interested in seeing this area conserved. They do already have 1 lot on their property, which has got a house built on it by their daughter, and of course that's allowed under the withdrawal from chapter property. And they have a separate lot that they're holding for their son when he's ready to build a house. And so those are 2 lots. 2 of them, there is this application to withdraw from chapter property, which we do have to debate on, but the Open Space Committee decided to defer on any kind of decision. We are not really one of the statutory groups for submitting an opinion to the Select Board, but this Select Board has welcomed opinions from the Open Space Committee, at least for the last year or 2. It's been great. In the meantime, conversations have continued with the property owners, and they await an appraisal, which is going to be paid for by Kestrel Land Trust, to understand what the value of this other non-withdrawal property is. And they are interested in working with the town to determine if this could all work together. It's obviously complex and not clear at this point, but it's hopeful that we can work. And the whole point is that more acres can be acquired because it's back acres, even though it's next to the pond, it has less amount of frontage, so that it's sort of an economic opportunity. I believe that was discussed at the Conservation Commission, so I'm sort of like feeding a little bleeding into these different things. And I think you had a member of Kestrel Land Trust present on Zoom call, and that was good to be helpful in that. So that's one of the items we were talking about at the Open Space Committee.
So it's not ready for our action yet?
It is definitely not ready for our action. And one of the things I need to research, because there's this question, and I don't have an answer, sorry, I didn't have a chance to look up this today. What is the process for letting them extend the deadline on the application for withdrawal of Chapter 61? I don't have an answer. They just need to put it in writing. Is that what you're indicating? But right now, that is one of the things. It is a very complex picture at this point. There is another property that we've talked about in the past, which is totally landlocked. It's about 40 acres. It's the end of Rattle Hill Road, and it goes, I'm sorry, thank you, Wolcott Road. It's landlocked. It's next to other town conservation property. It's owned by a family who has inherited it from their father, who passed away last year. And we're going to call it the Trinseri property. That's the family's name. They also agreed to a appraisal, which is being paid for by Kestrel, to determine the value. And they have expressed an interest in having the town acquire that. And that, too, might be able to be purchased. It sounds positive, to be purchased with funds that Kestrel Land Trust is going to be able to help us utilize for that.
So this might swap out the funds that had already been approved for at least one.
In this case, this one wouldn't be swapping out funds. This would be a separate amount of money that Kestrel seems to have a cap on.
Okay.
It would be very valuable for the town because it would extend a current conservation property, and it, in many ways, and I will say the Conservation Commission in the past has stated a real value in having that property. Once again, it's totally landlocked. There's no frontage on a public road. So that's that one. And finally, I'm going to give a report from the assessors. And we discussed today the other property for withdrawal from chapter land.
Which will come up?
This one? Okay. This is the Florida property again. And after a lot of debate, and I haven't had a chance to write this opinion up today. This was an assessors meeting earlier this afternoon. The assessors believe that the Florida property, the 2 lots that I said had frontage and they want to withdraw, they are of the opinion that the select board should consider exercising its right of first refusal. And it's all pending what kind of finance could be available and how this fits into the larger picture. Once again, back to the Florida property, it's very complex. It's right, it's on Fulmer Road, and it's a very beautiful, beautiful lot down there next to other conservation land, which is Wolf Hill Sanctuary. So I don't have all the answers. I'm just keeping the select board informed about what's available.
And we're still within our 120 days, I assume?
Yes, we are. Yeah. Okay, so I kind of mixed a couple of properties there, and I think that is enough report for me.
Sounds good. And for those that are listening, we have when an entity, a homeowner wants to withdraw their property from chapter, there's basically a clock that starts ticking, 120 days for the various boards to act upon it. Planning, assessors, and Concom first before it comes to select board to make that decision whether we want to exercise our right of first refusal or waive it.
I do need to do a quickie addendum to my report. We have recognized, we the Board of Assessors, as well as maybe the select board and other entities, that our process for withdrawal is a little on the shaky side. We are following the law, but at the same time it's not 100% clear. When should something be received? What should be date stamped? What should be accompanying it, etc. So we are actively working on that. That will be achieved within the next month. I'll be looking for input. Of course, the select board will have a chance to weigh in, and we're looking for certain expertise on that because we think we can do a better job of this. It's been a little complicated, and right? This gentleman has been very patient with us. He's
learning experience.
Yes, it has been, yeah. So that's my addendum.
All right, very good. Okay. From my end, just focusing on the grant committee. There are two grants kind of on the horizon right now. There's an expression of interest out there right now for the a one-stop grant, which is due before the end of March. And we talked about it at Public Safety Building Committee yesterday and agreed that we would go ahead with putting in the expression of interest similar to what we had done 2 years ago, which was to focus on the construction, well, not the construction, the pre-construction activities, so the architect and design engineering activities for the public safety building. And that's just an expression of interest. The full application isn't due until June, and we may or may not keep that same expression of interest when we actually do an application. The MVP grant, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness one, that is an actual grant application that is open and needs to be dealt with. And we had put in earlier on as an expression of interest on that one, the feasibility of a heating cooling center somewhere in town, looking at 2 or 3 locations and coming up with a feasibility study of a plan and hopefully a little bit of funding to actually implement it. I mean, I think in general it's very difficult sometimes. We do feasibility studies, but if you don't have the money to implement it, you're still kind of back at square zero here. And so this is one where I'm trying to see if we can put that in together and make it a little bit of a package and not just a feasibility study. So we'll be working on those 2 grants over the next probably 2-3 weeks at least, next month basically. And that's basically it. Bylaws Committee, we've done a couple things and we'll be talking about those in just a minute. So that's it on committee reports. I don't have anything, without John here, I don't have any updates on the school. Scott may have more than I do and anything on that, but we'll move on to new business. So first one, bylaw amendment. We've got one draft to review. We'd already put on the agenda that you've already seen on the swimming pool bylaw amendment, and what that has done is change it to swimming pool safety as a name of the bylaw, and then some updates there that we've worked on with the building commissioner, updates to building codes regarding setbacks and so forth, and where the pools need to be, height of the fence, the locking gate, etc. So that's an update on that one. And then the new one we have is just an amendment to the naming of public buildings and, is the one, sorry? Mm-hmm. Yeah, naming of public buildings, structures, and lands. And this one, we've gone through and tried to see if we could make it, I think partly also amongst various groups in town, as well as I think even with our legal counsel at one point in time, we were being very tight tight, I think I would say, very structured on this one, and tried to loosen it up just a little bit. And instead of making everything so bureaucratic and having to go to town meeting for every kind of change, this particular one is suggesting a change, and these are suggestions at this point in time, that the naming of these facilities would be by a majority vote of select board. If they were named, then they couldn't be renamed unless they did go to town meeting. So there's a level of decision-making at the select board, and we'll look at the criteria on that. And some of this has come partly from Concom, and then a couple of other committees have made some comments on this as well. But the cross out here is where some of it's just a different format, basically formatted in there. And then there's one change in there. So basically, any proposed naming of any public building, structure, bridge, public land shall be submitted to the select board in writing, accompanied by a recommendation from any agency, i.e. any committee, board, commission, having jurisdiction over it. So if it were Concom wanting to do a trail, for example, which I know is one of the issues, or something like that, or to name a conservation area or whatever, it would have to be accompanied by a letter from Concom, but it would come to select board. And then there would be a letter of support if it were a historical.
I'm sure I heard you the wrong way around. Naming of lands would come before the select board.
Yes.
Naming of trails is not in the list and would not.
Right now, it's included in the whole thing. We'll get to that right now.
Okay.
But it's still jurisdictional. So it would be recommendation. It would be recommendation with. It would be recommendation with Concom, for example, of something that they wanted to name, as just using them as an example. There would have to be a letter of support from the Historical Commission, if that were applicable. And then just the ones that are listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, they've just been collapsed up into here. So the select board, if anything is named after a person, select board shall take into account the nominee's past residence in town, extraordinary service and/or contributions to the town. And then any public lands could be named for natural descriptors of the land or after a specific individual as part of a bequest or some kind of special circumstance. So that's broadened a little bit from what had been done before, which I think is number 5 down here, where it had been said that we wouldn't name it for any commercial property or any commercial entity or living person. And so this, trying to think ahead, if we amend this, trying to think ahead to our future facilities that we hope to have in town, from public safety, senior center, other things that are happening. We want to make it so that it's doable and not so restrictive, which I think this ended up being kind of inadvertently. And then basically, instead of, this is just a change of wording from public hearings, which mean usually that we have to advertise it in the Gazette. That costs hundreds of dollars, oddly enough, to advertise a public hearing. So we just changed that to a scheduled public meeting, which is oftentimes what we do anyway, rather than a public hearing. And a public meeting will allow for input from anybody who wants to attend that about their thoughts about the proposed name or any other comments they have. And this also gets rid of the other thing here about naming sub-areas, so rooms and sub-areas that had to be less than 25% of a structure or a land, and it was getting too convoluted, I guess I would say, in generous terms. And so we're recommending that we cross that out altogether and not deal with 25% of anything. So that's kind of it. And then if there were any features, and so the features can be anything from plaques to benches to whatever else is defined up in the definition there, that could be done by the jurisdiction, by the agency having jurisdiction over the same. And then if we wanted to set, and I think we already do have at Concom, at least we've got set signs for our conservation areas. Yep. Theoretically, they're all green, although I see there's a blue one around town, but there's all supposed to be one color that I know of. And so those were all, sort of a set design, and that had been done quite a while ago. So that's just putting that in there, just say that we might, so may, not shall, but may, after a scheduled meeting, establish any standards or specs for plaques or markers or anything like that. But it's just allowing that to happen, not saying that it would happen. Dan, question?
Can I just have an example? Because I know Concom's come up to do this. So let's say we have a conservation area and we want to relabel all the trails, sort of like a ski resort. We want to make sure every trail has a name so people know which one they're going down. Mm-hmm. Does Concom will come with like a map marked up with some names on it and bring it to you guys and you approve it?
I think that would be basically a simple way to do it, would be to do that and put a recommendation saying, we want to name it after Dan LaValle. It's like, well, give us a little clue as to why, I think that would be,
We'll choose.
yeah. I mean, we didn't list every, to Stephen's point, we didn't list every eventuality here of, every kind of thing that could be named. So, trying to think of like conservation lands in global terms that in my head would include trails without specifying trails, but
Can you go back up to the section where there was a conservation area named, but somebody wanted to change the name? It has to go to town meeting, right?
if it's already been named,
Yeah, it's already been named.
and you wanted to name it something new,
Correct.
that would have to go to town meeting.
Does it?
Farther up.
A little bit further.
The
Yeah.
way up top, very first thing.
And then what has to come in order to make the application for the change? What do we need to?
Be some of the same criteria.
Okay, so essentially, as if there was no name at all, and it probably comes first to the select board, and then because it's a change in name, it would then have to go to town meeting.
So it doesn't change every year.
Yeah, we don't want, theoretically, most things that are
Yeah.
named, stay
Yes.
named. I mean, it's very rare, I think, that we would find a lot of shifting around of naming things. But once it's been named and we've agreed to that, then, if there
That's
were a compelling reason to name it something else,
Yeah.
then I think that would have to come not only to us, but to town meeting. But I would think it would follow the same criteria. That would be
Okay.
my thought.
Excellent.
Be
So-
careful naming
Yeah.
it the red trail. Back to town
So-
meeting to get it fixed.
Anything else? So that's what we're going to recommend anyway. And I don't know, we wanted to bring it to select board bylaws committee. I'm speaking from bylaws committee now. To have, as usual, select board make any comments, thoughts about it, and then see what you think about it. And if not, we'll move it on to KP to put in their 2 cents worth, and they may have some issues with it too. So
Can I come at the same issue in a different direction? There's a list of things to which names might be affixed.
right under the definitions up there, maybe
The
Scott?
fact that trails is not
I
called
took that part
out
out because there's no change. I took
nonetheless
that part out.
means it's included, right? Okay.
Yeah,
I was coming back way around.
there is a definition section. Sorry, we didn't
But
put it up on the
A
board.
room is not in the list.
That was one of the sub areas. So like a building. So like what we had done before was in here. So like if
So it's
the library
included
wanted
under the concept of building, and it comes for review.
right,
Okay.
we've taken out at this point. We took out the idea of a sub area, which would have been like a room at the library or a room at the school.
Yeah, a lot of crazy definitions.
Sorry.
It was very complex.
Yeah, the 20%.
That's what we're thinking.
The
Yes,
concept is naming a room goes through what procedure?
would go through. If I'm not mistaken, it would go through say the library that has jurisdiction thereof and bring it to the select board for review and approval.
Or...
I think. Am I right on that?
Unless it was already named.
Yeah, if it was already named, it would still come to us, but then to town meeting. But if it doesn't have a name, if it's just,
So if the senior
X.
center wanted to name their, common area in honor of their major donor,
or something.
meeting the criteria,
Right.
they would nominate it to the select board?
Through their board?
Right,
Through
yes.
their board.
Through the board.
Accompanied by a letter from whoever's got jurisdiction.
Okay.
And the jurisdiction there meaning the entity that's proposing it, I guess is what I'm saying. So yeah, so that agency word is kind of a weird legalese term, but it really does mean board, commission, committee.
Okay,
That has jurisdiction.
so I think using Stephen's example right there, if somebody wanted to name something major in the senior center, like their common area, but they didn't go through the board, they can't come directly to the select board, or if they did, would they be advised, thank you, but please start
Go to the
going
board.
through the board?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
important to know.
Yeah. And so there is a definition section. We didn't change any of that, so none of that got copied in there. But so features would be benches, bricks, flagpoles, plaques, scoreboards, whatever. Public land was any property owned or maintained by the town or any department thereof, not limited to playgrounds, parks, courts, athletic fields, etc. We didn't throw trails in there, but
Well, given they were all hopeful of new public buildings being built in the next few years, there's likely to be a lot of those kinds of things are going to come up, and some of them might be related to, donations to bricks.
Yeah, depending on how that all works out.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen buildings be built in other towns where, you know, if you put in whatever, $500, you get a brick in your name or
Right,
something like that. So
exactly,
but that's individual features, it's not the building itself. So,
There it is. Features.
okay. Any thoughts about it? Is that,
It's helpful.
I mean, it's simpler, but does it achieve what we think we want to have happen? And again, I've been hearing it more from lands and trails kind of things. I haven't really heard any problem, it's not even come up yet in terms of buildings. So does it allow us enough flexibility, or is it too
I think this
unclear?
solves the problem that we had before, where we didn't have a clear method for naming subsections of, say, a conservation area. Like we want to name a trail, for example. How can the Conservation Commission just name it, or does it have to be approved by it? This is great that it's defined.
So at least it comes through another layer of approval with some rationale,
Yep.
but it doesn't have to go through the onerous process of waiting months and months and months to make it on a warrant for a
Yeah.
town meeting.
Mhm.
So it does have another check, if you will, another step to sort of, you know, provide that rationale and justify it, but it doesn't make it go, you know, make it be a big issue, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There's another consideration, and I know 30 years ago, the owner of the summit of Pomeroy Mountain wanted to name it with his last name. And it was already named by, is it USGS? And so therefore, if there's a name already by, say, a federal agency or even a state agency, can we override it or what? I think you need, and I think that's come up with the acquisition of another larger property that we got through the Mountain Waters project, that apparently, and I'm sorry I'm not going to remember exactly what agency named it, Breakwater Conservation Area.
Yeah,
Breakneck
Breakneck Ridge, I believe it was, or
Yeah,
something.
no,
Yeah.
that was my Breakneck Ridge.
Well,
So I just think we have to consider whether or not it's
Okay.
already been named.
All right, so we might, if anything, Scott, then we might add in just something saying, should there be a name already designated, and this would be a land issue, really, a name already designated by who?
By another municipal entity like state or
state,
federal,
state or federal entity
Yeah.
or something? I mean,
then
or whatever.
would we be able to override it? That's the big question, or not?
I would think probably not in my head, but I don't know that for sure. I kind of doubt it.
Well, if the town owns the property versus the state,
That's right,
I'm not
yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Sometimes they put names on things because they didn't have a name.
right, yeah.
It just carries over.
Yeah, so that would be, something we could add in there, maybe ask the question as it goes on to
Yeah.
legal to see what we
Well, I
think.
would distinguish between the name of a property and the name of the geographic feature.
Mhm.
And we're talking about naming the property based on ownership, not elevation. The mountain we can't rename except through an act of Congress, is my understanding.
Yeah,
Or an
I wouldn't think
executive
we'd
order,
be renaming
as we've
mountains,
learned.
yeah, no, I wouldn't think so.
But, no, but the property could be, we could decide to name it after the donor if we ran it through the process, I believe.
Unless they have to be not alive any longer, isn't that part of
Well,
the criteria?
We changed it.
That's where
Oh, we
we
changed
burn them
it.
at the stake.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in general, I mean, a lot of the lands, we would assume that what's in the new one is a lot of the lands would be named after geographic features of the property.
Yeah, I see.
But it could be named after a person, depending. But it might not be a bad idea to add in just something that, should there be a land area already named historically or by state something, whatever the
Yeah.
wording is.
I don't know what the wording is.
Executive order.
Executive order, right. We at least maybe need to put that there and inquire about it. I think from legal, that would be my only thought on that. That's a good point. So,
I don't want
jump
to make
in.
it more complicated, so maybe this doesn't apply. But
Yep.
is there a process for naming streets? Because I know that we probably be naming a street
I
pretty
would,
soon.
yeah.
I don't know.
And
Randall
should we
would
add
have
this
to. I
to
don't
it?
know how that happens actually.
Randall did send an email that he wanted to see if we could include streets.
Oh, really?
But I think
Okay.
it might be a little bit too late and too complicated at this point.
Oh,
So-
okay. Why would that be that much different? Is it?
Well, the planning board is the one Who's responsible for naming
They-
the streets
We've
right
never
now?
named a street.
No, we have because.
Street addresses.
We've had some new
Yeah, street
Right.
developments.
And our street's brand new.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what we did in that case, I was on the planning board at the time, we accepted the people that were developing the property. There was Fitch and there was Gill Farms. And those names just, I guess they put it in their application for the development of the
Well, I think in the
subdivisions.
past, they resulted from properties that had been farmed at the time, perhaps.
I don't know if that was part of it. I mean, they were the owners. They formerly probably did farm them, but.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the town controls those projects.
No, I think it's.
No.
in
That's
marketing.
true,
Yeah.
that's true. That's
So on
part of
public-
it.
Especially if it's private.
Yeah, private
It
roads, we
is,
don't
that's
have much
right.
say over. So public ways, we would, but not private ways.
Very good
Yeah.
point, yes.
We can just double check whatever Randall was wanting to say, and we can, I mean, I'd really kind of like
Don't
to do
change
this
your
once and for all and be done, and if it's not gonna be ready for the special town, if we wanted to add streets or something, at least for the Maytown meeting, but I'd like to get it done this time if we can, but, let's just see how complicated the streets part is. So with those comments, anybody have any other comments, or are we okay to send it on to KP with these couple comments and see what they think about it?
Sure.
Yes?
Fan built.
Okay, I'm taking that as a yes, I'm not hearing any objection on that?
Do you want a motion?
All
I
right,
think we're going to have discussion at town meeting.
so,
Do you need a motion?
sure, why not?
I'd like to make a motion that do you want to send both the naming, what was the other one? The two
Name of public buildings, bylaw amendment, naming of public buildings, structures and lands.
Yes, that, and also the swimming pools?
We already did the swimming,
We already did
that's
the-
already done,
Okay,
with
then
the
just
lawyers and that.
the naming of public building structures and lands article, the wording of that along to our legal department.
Okay, with the couple of notes that are been mentioned in our discussion.
Yes, as mentioned.
Okay, all right, I'm a second,
Second.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Everybody okay? All right. Next up, conservation fee schedule. This is a request from Conservation Commission. George, you're actually here, if you'd like to speak to it, but I think it's relatively simple. The second page, Scott, down actually is the current Concom schedule. So there's very little change. There's actually one minor and then two other changes to it. So we'll pull it back up again. And what it is adding in the notice of intent. The two things that are new would be the $125 for each dwelling unit in a duplex. That was missing completely in the current one. And $350 for a multifamily, 3 units or more. So those two were missing completely. And then in the fee schedule, the NRED is based on linear feet, not square feet. So that was a minor change from what's already on the current books. And you can pull it down if Dan looks like he has a question. No? This is something that got proposed at Concom apparently, and came to us. So we have in here, the NRED is the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. And we have that as a square foot. It's currently what's on the books. And so Concom makes its fees, but Select Board has to approve them. So this would be the request to change that to linear feet and then add in the other two, 125 and 350, I believe, and those other two in number 1. Okay, any?
These are select board, this does not have to go
These are
before town meeting?
These are Concom policies.
Right, do they have to go before town meeting or can we just
No.
make the decisions? Okay.
These are Concom policies that come to Select Board and we approve them.
And the receipts go into what fund?
It goes into the
Revolving fund for
we have
conservation.
Conservation Revolving Fund, as far as I know,
And
for these.
we have a title for that particular fund. I'd request that you send the specific title that we are authorizing to both the agent and the chair.
Okay.
There may
I think it's Conservation Revolving Funds, but
Yeah, we should.
Then there's a separate one.
Last night.
It may be more clear in the town meeting warrant than it is in other records.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it's just Conservation Revolving Fund, and then there's a separate one on Conservation Forestry Revolving Fund. It's
Yes.
a completely separate one.
Yes.
And
Okay.
more and more.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Oh, there's only one forestry one that I'm aware of.
No,
There's no
no
more
forestry.
ones.
So, I don't know where these were done offhand, but every year we vote on the actual amounts of money in the revolving funds.
Right.
So here you've got what the use is. So conservation operating expenses, admin expenses. Conservation forestry is oversight and management of conservation areas, including forestry land. So that's the only two that are under Concom, as far as I know, under revolving funds.
So the fees would go into the first one, the admin.
Yes, they go in the admin one for fees for permits like that.
And if I could geek out, I'm just asking staff double check the general ledger account number and make sure that there aren't sometimes two, and one is carrying a balance and there's more of them. I have no evidence.
Okay. I know the forestry one was only created a couple of years ago, so it can't have a whole lot.
I'm talking about the conservation revolving
Well, that's,
fund.
yeah, so that
Clearly
would,
authorized in town meeting warrant, no problem.
right. And those roll over to
It's the daily
the,
operation that I'm just
Yeah.
liking to be clarified
Yeah.
as a internal financial control issue, that things are coded correctly. That's all I'm asking.
okay, that's fine. It should be on Bradley's revenue reports, so when you see them, under the special revenue, that's where they would be on a normal report. So,
I'm not as close to it as the agent is, and I would ask that the two staff people communicate clearly
Okay.
and directly, and that's outside my jurisdiction, so I'll shut up.
okay. All right, so that's basically conservation fee schedule. Anybody have any other comments or not? We'll take a motion to approve that as requested.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the fee schedule proposed by the Conservation Commission as shown.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion's approved. All right. Let's do the next fees, yep, and we have another one. You can make that a little bit bigger, Scott, if you mind. We have fire department permit fees. We have some new ones. This, I believe, Chief, why don't you, if you want to speak to it? I know you said this hadn't been updated in like 10 years?
10 years.
So this one, Concom, I think has been only a couple years, 2-3 years. This one has been out there for a good 10 years where it hadn't had any updates. So, and these are new fees and just,
They've been updated. There's not a lot of changes. A lot of them are set by the state. So there wasn't a lot of change. Some here and there, a little bit. Nothing really drastic. I just wanted to update it. There was some that weren't on there, like the solar plans. Those just became a fire inspection in 2022.
okay.
So those weren't on there. The hot works permit wasn't on there.
Just plain hot works?
Yeah.
Hot works is, for instance, when they built the bridge on East Street, they needed a hot works permit when they were doing welding. So they had to have a fire watch and fire extinguishers, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
So any type of welding or using a torch, they're supposed to have a permit.
Got it, yep.
Can I ask you a question about the solar panel? This for my planning board meeting, want to understand, is that for solar panels that are roof mounted as well as ones that are ground mounted? Or?
Right.
Okay, you have to inspect both now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The solar panels, what that is before it became a fire department inspection, you could cover the whole roof. And now that the fire department has the state permit, there has to be access for the fire department to get up onto the roof and across the top. And then also the ESS is an energy storage system, a battery. Tesla is the big one. Before you could put them anywhere. Now you have to have, fire rated doors and walls, and, you can only put them in certain spots.
Okay.
Where in the past, we had a call this summer for a totally separate smoke in the house. It was a chimney malfunction. Went down in the basement and they had a battery storage system just hanging on the wall in the basement. So,
Okay.
and everybody knows now with the batteries, they you can't put them out. They just have to kind of burn out on their own.
Right.
So that's why the fire department got involved, and
Right.
now there's permits involved for it.
Okay. So these are all permits that they would have to come to the fire department, anybody would have to come to the
Yes.
fire department to get?
The solar plan, we actually have it on the town website already, a plan review.
Okay,
So all the solar companies, they all know to fill it out and send it in with their plans. And then we sign off on it, and then they can move forward on the installation.
okay. And is your annual food truck inspection, is that in addition to what the Board of Health does, or the
Yes.
same thing?
No, yeah,
Different purpose?
yes. Yeah, we're there to inspect their fire systems.
Okay.
You know, fire extinguisher systems, so. And their propane, where they're mounted and
Okay.
all that.
Are these one-time permits required or
Yes.
periodic updates?
Most of them are one time. The annual inspections, you would have to, you know, you do them every year.
Right.
So like the.
But these are all one-time?
Annual.
Daycare inspections once a year.
Yeah.
The food trucks, they have to get them inspected every year.
Okay, and I see you designated two-year permit on tank.
The
Yeah.
tank truck, yeah, most of those are, you know, when you see a pickup and they have the little fuel cell in the back, that's what those are.
Okay, all right. Is there another page on that, or is that?
A serious question, how do the people know how frequently they have to re-permit or redo this? Or
Well, the fuel tank, all the, you know, when you give them a permit, it's good for 2 years and they have to come back.
So it's written on the permit
Yes.
Oh,
paper itself? Okay. And right now, we're still on paper permits, we're not doing online permitting on this yet?
Well, now that, you know, we have the permit fee structure, we're working to get it online, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is an update basically of fees,
Yes.
and any more there? Going on down?
Pages and pages.
Yeah, a couple pages worth. So,
The old ones.
oh, more.
2015, so it's about 10 years
Oh,
old.
that's the 50, yeah, from
Yeah, that's the
2015.
old one.
Okay. Yeah, definitely not quite as detailed, okay.
So,
And just one last question from my end. The individual vehicle cost per hour, so that would be,
like when they did the dance studio did that video shoot on Fletcher's Farm.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, so we supplied a brush truck and 2 personnel,
got it, okay.
so.
So that would be for a sort of a special event, it's not
Yes,
because
yes.
you send a fire truck out?
Right,
To a home.
and currently, right now, the dance studio again, in the old Harley shop,
Yeah,
they're doing video shoots in there with a smoke machine. So they have to shut off some of the alarm sensors,
yeah,
and so they have a fire watch there.
all right.
So,
You never know what kind of things are involved in, in all these events, that's great,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so this is basically an update that'll be put up on your
Yes.
page on the
town
website?
webpage.
Yeah. Mhm. Cindy, question?
I'm just looking at the bottom there, materials and equipment, build replacement costs. So you have to get a quote on what the replacement cost would be. And then medical observation / treatment.
Treatment, that's a, you know, like, they used to have the dirt bike race in town.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
They would supply an ambulance, and so if somebody got hurt and we transported, their insurance would be paying that
That's
bill.
considered the responsible party unless
Right.
they don't have it.
Right, so,
Yep.
one thing that most residents may care about is the yearly burn permit. Does that go up?
yeah, the burning permits are on there.
25. Same as before.
The only agricultural permits are free, you know, for the farmers.
Burn permit was somewhere, I saw it. Where'd it go?
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle there.
How frequently do you do the smoke detector and the carbon monoxide?
Whenever a house is sold,
Ah,
they have to have one.
didn't know that.
Yep. So Dan, you're residential, 2-day or weekend?
Something people at home may be interested to see.
Correct. Yeah,
You get a season pass.
yeah. So
Season pass.
2-day weekend pass for $10 or a season pass for $25 for your burn
Right.
permits up until May 1st.
Yeah.
Bring a check.
Yeah.
Yes.
No
Yeah.
other form of
No,
currency
yes.
accepted.
Yeah,
No cash.
Yeah. Very
makes it
good.
easier for everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
In theory.
So could we have a motion to approve the new fee schedule for the
I
fire
move
department?
the proposed new fee
Second.
schedule be approved.
Okay.
As submitted.
Okay. And second from
Yes.
Stephen? Okay.
Yes.
If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Very good.
Can I make a motion that we move at one point in the agenda? I know Mr. Hyde is here and
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
He's the last
Sure,
member
okay.
of Jim.
Yep, now we got a couple more things, yep. All right, so we have, you want to take that, Cindy?
Do I want to take it?
Well,
Yeah,
you seem to,
well, there's an application that I think just came up on your screen, that the withdrawal of properties on Pequot Road, and Mr. Hyde represents the estate of Jeanette Judge, who was your mother, is that correct? And as far as I know, has been to Conservation Commission, has been to the Board of Assessors, and has been to the Planning Board.
right, we've got all that in our packets.
Open space out of the courtesy, and we appreciate that a lot. So, would you like to talk about your properties?
Okay, well, you have it up there. Actually, Heritage is doing the A&R on it, and they supposed, I think they might have got it to you, the application
Right.
today, so I don't know if it's easier if I just show you what a dot is up there.
Yeah.
That's what they put together for me to use here.
And let me acknowledge, I got really lost with terminology. And I understand when you say A&R, it's a survey created by the local surveyor, not by the state agency or somewhere in there. And you're taking two existing lots and joining them.
Correct.
And they are next to each other.
Yeah.
So it doesn't require the planning board to approve or acknowledge or...
I will say I saw correspondence from the chair of the planning board today, and he referenced this as an A&R.
And I'm learning that terminology. I've
Okay.
only heard it when splitting parcels.
Oh,
But any cleaving of parcels, whether apart or together. So I've learned this, and I want to say that I was confused. Because joining of parcels is far less common
Yeah.
than splitting
yeah.
parcels.
Yeah.
And you've
So-
also got a street number on that now, too.
That's great, that's 94, but I don't know if you need to see all this, but this is...
Yeah, we don't need to see the whole map. We've got-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
So, but the it's new for me too, so I think
I believe you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do have this up as, it's been checked out, and it will be known as 94 Pequot Road. I think before it's been known as 0 or 0 Rear or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the assessors, I think, confirmed that they had looked into it through Cindy, and
We
they're gonna be-
did. We discovered that there had been a street number assigned by the planning board, and somehow the communication didn't get to the assessor's office.
Right.
But it has been received, so we do have a street number
So
for
it's
that,
94.
yes.
So we have in our packages a communication from planning board recommending that we waive the right of first refusal. Similarly from the Board of Assessors, and similarly from the Conservation Commission. So all three requisite boards have recommended that we waive the right of first refusal to purchase this property. And therefore,
And I will speak that the Open Space Committee also did, and I'm sorry I didn't get the correspondence to you for tonight's meeting.
But, understood, and we welcome that, but again, there are three
These are the
required
important
boards,
ones, yes.
and that's all that's required by the
You acknowledge
MGL.
that you didn't show
So,
up in vain.
and so I think from what we know, you've followed the process, and you have a purchase and sale or an
Yeah.
agreement on the property already,
Right, yeah.
and you've gone through the requisite boards to get the approval, and everybody's recommending we waive, so with that, can I have the motion from Select Board, please? Do you follow the recommendations of our sub-boards and waive the right of first refusal on this property, known as 94 Pequot?
I move that we, the select board, waive the right of first refusal and will allow these to be withdrawn from chapter 4 conversion to residential.
According to the notice submitted and the purchase and sale attached there.
According to the notice submitted and the purchase and sale that you've attached.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right,
Okay.
it is. There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you believe
All
it?
right, we've gone through the process.
Thanks.
All right, very good.
Because I got the other acreage up there. too.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry to get hung up on language, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
get my head in it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. Next up, we don't have any paper on this, but we have a request from planning board, basically, and also somewhat from Stephen himself. But the planning board usually has a delegate and an alternate from planning board to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And at this point in time, we've understood, or I've understood from the chair, that they're having difficulties finding an alternate from planning board.
Yes.
The chair himself is right now the designated delegate from planning board, but he is recommending that we make an exception and allow an alternate to be appointed from select board, because planning board doesn't have anybody who's willing to give the time and effort to do that. And Stephen has volunteered to do that, and the planning board chair has agreed with that idea. So I would like to make a motion that we approve Stephen Johnson as the alternate delegate representing the select board to attend the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission meetings and its various subcommittees as they determine.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I'm willing.
Okay. Yeah, we should ask that. Are you willing? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. There it is. Thank you. And Stephen, you'll just abstain, or do you want? You can vote for yourself, I suppose.
However you want.
Yeah, I don't know. What's appropriate? We can do a 3 and an abstain. How's that?
Yeah, and you know, I think I understand between Paul and myself that I'll do most of the attendance, and we'll work out the communication, which should come back principally to the planning board. But
Okay.
I'll share it liberally with the select board.
Sounds good. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Scott, let's talk briefly on the special town meeting warrant and where we're at with that, please.
So we're having the special town meeting on Saturday, March 22nd. We need to get the warrant signed and posted by no later than Friday in the 6 different areas of the town by the constable. I was able to reduce it a little bit. Some of the things are going to be, would have to be moved to the annual town meeting. But the biggest one is Article 1, which I was able to get the language from bond counsel. One of the things I just want to stress is, sorry, I'm just getting rid of these pop-ups. The amount of money that we're borrowing for is not in the actual article itself. It's going to be in the motion and in the explanation. So right now, the public safety complex, we have the estimate at $21.4 million. The public safety committee is seeking $3.1 million for the OPM and architectural and engineering costs, which will have to be borrowed for through town meeting. If town meeting approves it by 2/3 vote, it would then go to the voters, and we're looking to have this on our regular municipal election in May 20th. I think it was May 20th or 22nd.
The date action.
So we won't have to do a special election. We can just do it along with the other thing. The senior center is not going to be requesting funds for the pre-construction cost right now. But ultimately, we're going to be looking at probably early fall for another special town meeting for the entire cost. And then within 90 days of that vote, we would have to have another election. So probably within 90 days, but no more than 35 days. So between 35 and 90 days, we have to have. So it'll probably be October, November if we're going to keep the fall schedule.
So this would be just looking for the architectural engineering services to start moving on the public safety complex, and it's just to give the authority to borrow on a debt exclusion.
Correct. And then next week or in a couple days, I'm going to do the rest of the article, the explanation, send it to finance committee to get approved, and hopefully do a very quick but thorough public education within 2 weeks.
You can change Board of Selectmen, please, to Select Board in that motion.
And since we're live, and you've highlighted a number, is that a TBD number? Often the highlights are left blank.
That was just from bond council, so roughly 3 million-ish, but I'll put the exact amount.
We don't need the wording of the motion until the meeting?
No, so the wording of the
warrant.
Right, the warrant doesn't have the value.
Yeah.
That will be the motion, and the wording and the explanation will be distributed beforehand.
Beforehand.
So to post the warrant, we just need the actual article language itself?
No, I understand the peculiar legalities.
Yeah. And then we'll work on that.
This is just a cost estimate that I put together for the building committees. The blue is public safety, purple is senior center, and then the combined costs. And it shows a very basic preliminary tax impact for each stage of the development. It doesn't include interest or any other stuff, so it will go up. So.
And do you want to mention just just briefly, since we're on live, or not live, but we will be recorded, we are recording, just what the, what this impact of the 3.1 might be?
It should be right around $43 to the average homeowner.
Per
year.
Per year.
Per year, yeah. It's not, again, a very rough estimate, not including additional expenses like interest and things like that, so.
Or offsets from grants and fundraising.
Or off, yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next.
We have the prudent investor rule, which is, this was actually language from KP Law. It's a request from the treasurer that would allow the treasurer to invest funds outside of a very small restrictive list, to open it up a little bit. This isn't the same thing as, I know John had mentioned, the trust fund committee, so that would be probably at the annual town meeting. But this is, it sounds similar, but it's a little bit different. You would also have the OPED declaration of trust, which is not only recommended by KP Law, but also from our auditors to establish one of those. We do have a amendment to the general bylaws to go back to Saturday morning for annual town meeting per the request of the moderator. We have the swimming pool safety bylaw that we mentioned before, as well as the naming of public building structures and lands. This one literally just came in about 20 minutes ago, the wording, but unpaid account from prior fiscal years for the busing fees. I don't think it's going to be from free cash because I know Norris has a separate amount that they have the money in, so I got to talk to Don, the business manager, and Norris and Bradley just to make sure that we get this wording right, because it definitely don't want to come from our free cash. It needs to come from the school's free cash because they never transfer the money from Norris School to the central office.
So this is for busing for the kids at Hampshire Regional?
For Norris School.
For Norris School.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, that's built into the Norris budget. Norris is supposed to transfer the money from Norris to central offices that pays all the bills. They haven't done that for a few years. So they should have a positive cash flow that will now pay for that. So because this is a prior year bill, it needs to have town meeting approval.
Do you know how big that carried balance is? The school's free cash?
I don't know. It should.
If not free cash, the account that was just accumulating, never sending out.
It should be close to that. I know that John had talked to Norris, so it should have grown with the amount not sent over to the central office. So hopefully, if not, we have another problem.
So you're hoping to get a more exact figure before we post this on Friday?
That's the exact figure according to Don.
Okay.
Just got the email.
Okay.
Haven't read it yet, but
so $454,000 basically.
yeah. So and then obviously we can't take from our free cash. So
Right.
That's a different thing. So
Okay.
transfer funds for legal costs, just an additional $5,000. I know we did the transfer from the finance committee last week, so hopefully I won't use all that up, and this will just take the place of that. We have some unpaid accounts from prior fiscal years, mostly from the elementary school. I didn't want to put the busing one into this list, so I separated it out because it's a little bit of a different amount of money. These are just our general smaller paid bills. I think the biggest one is there's a grant that we have to repay from FY22 for the fire department. That's the biggest municipal one. Other than that, it's $97. Things like we don't get the bill in time or aren't able to encumber funds.
What's the weights and measures one? We didn't pay that bill?
We did. We did, but we have to, I guess it's, I'll check with Judy, but it's part of the thing. Bradley's paid from previous fiscal year, so we paid this fiscal year.
I see.
So.
And just out of curiosity, dog control, what's that about? Is that our Westfield Animal Shelter?
That I don't know. Lucy?
I can-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucy knows.
That bill came in when I was in the hospital
Okay.
and didn't get paid, so.
Okay. I was thinking the vendor was a little, I didn't understand what LL Data Designs was.
That's the dog software that I use.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yes.
All right, okay. So previous bills, yeah?
Yeah. And then last but not least, request for CPA funding for the First Congressional Church.
This is for heat pumps? Okay.
That's last but not least. So the order of the
Right.
articles is already established.
Right.
I mean, we can change them, absolutely.
I happen to know that person who's got an interest in Article 10 wondered when it was going to show up on the warrant, so.
Usually,
okay.
well,
I told that person that I didn't know if the order had been established yet, so I don't know.
usually CPA funds come toward the end of the warrant. They're just, yeah, just about always. I mean,
We can ask the moderator to
We
get out
could-
of
we
order
could-
if we need to.
revise it.
We could make a motion at the beginning of the meeting for a good
Right.
reason.
You
That's
can.
our experience.
Correct. Okay. All right, so we've got it down to 10 articles, basically.
Yep.
That's it.
And we didn't need to do a consent agenda, because most of it was just unpaid bills, which I, instead of doing individuals, I just lumped it in together as one article, so.
Okay, so we'll have some of the ones that we thought we might do, that we'll hold them off until the May town meeting. So this is just for the special town meeting. Okay, anybody have any comments or questions? If not, we would need to basically vote to allow Scott to tidy these up and get them posted on, by Friday at the latest, yeah. And then he'll be working on the summaries and the motions for each of these.
I move that we acknowledge and accept the draft warrant, subject to further edits according to town manager, or town administrator, and town council, and that it be posted according to statute.
Second.
All right, any further question, discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. There you go. Okay. And just for everybody again, town meeting, March 22nd, Saturday, 10, hopefully done by 12.
Road race day.
Yeah, road race Saturday. We didn't realize that's happening. Hopefully, what time's the road race?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Oh, we'll definitely be done by then. Definitely be done by then. So,
Is it at the school?
yeah, it's at the school. Town meeting's at the school, yes. Okay, all right, next up, just want to do a little update on the land use planning, Scott. We've gone through the process a couple of nights ago.
Yep, so we had a really great meeting last Thursday with Dotson and Flinker and PVPC. I invited the public for a interactive workshop on what Zero College Highway could be named and would look like in the future. A lot of good participation. We had almost 70 people show up that signed in, at least. We might have had more. But the next phase is Dotson and Flinker is going to take all the information that they gathered from that and start doing, a very basic outline of what the property could look like. I also just want to mention that it's not the last time that we're going to be having a public input. First of all, there's a survey that's out there right now for anyone to participate in that may not have been able to do that. So it's on the town website. It's a Survey Monkey. After we get a little bit further down the road, we're going to have some other public participation once we get some designs finalized. So I think there's going to be 1 or 2 other ones probably in April and then throughout the summer as well.
Yep, and I think, people in general, I think appreciated the chance to have a small group scenario. It was a very interactive session, and as of this evening, the video of it, Easthampton Media was there, videoed it, and also took some still shots that incorporated that, so that's up on our town website now for anybody who wasn't there and wants to catch up on that. So please feel free to check in on the town website under the special projects land use planning. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Just one PS to that, and Scott, was good to mention the upcoming opportunities for the broad public to re-engage. There are committees and subcommittees that are working with consultants on a weekly basis, but it's not driving to one preordained solution. It's exploring different options, and so I'm sure that the next public meeting, there will be at least 2 options so we can compare and contrast. And that's really important. This is about getting the community engaged and as close to consensus as we can. This is a big deal.
It's very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think one other thing I just want to mention before we move too far away from the special town meeting warrant. I'm trying to find it now, but I got a note from our town moderator. He will be doing his usual run-through, his draft run-through of the town meeting warrant. I believe it's going to be the 13th?
Yep.
Okay, and probably
7 p.m.
7 p.m., thank you. And I'm sure we will, if that's not going to be televised live, it'll certainly be recorded one way or another. We'll figure that out before the 13th. But Robert runs through each of the warrant articles, and so that's for the public to get aware of them. And as soon as we have this posted, we'll certainly post that on the town website and so forth as well, so that you can understand all of that. Next up, 250th anniversary. Nothing more new. It's we're continuing to work. We got some new things coming along. The next one is going to be the trivia night at the Southampton Country Club on the 21st. So please study up on your Southampton trivia. And we do ask that you send in an email if you can to Sharon Tilby. That's on the flyers that are floating around here about that. And we just want to do a head count so that we know how many people might be coming. And then there'll be on the 29th, I believe it is, a pancake breakfast at the Congregational Church. So those are the two main events coming up in March. And we will have another meeting on Monday night for the committee that's working on the planning of all this. Very active and engaged committee. And we thank everybody who's been involved so far. Any other business that can't wait for the next regular March 18th Select Board meeting? I only have one thing myself. If anybody has anything? No? Okay. One thing that came up at Public Safety Building Committee last evening was the desire to do a little bit more public education about the public safety building itself, which will be obviously on the warrant for the special town meeting. So they are that'll be on the warrant, but this is also just in general public education. There's an opportunity to try and save a little bit of cost and get the word out broadly through putting inserts in the tax bill. And the tax bills will be going out, I believe, the week of March 17th, I'm thinking it is, from what Jen told me. And we won't have another select board meeting theoretically, a formal regular select board meeting before that. So what Public Safety Building Committee would like to do would be to do basically a two-sided flyer, just a piece of paper with two sides, one of which talks about the costs that Scott has mentioned tonight, as well as just some basic facts about the public safety complex and why it's necessary, and just some basic facts and figures. We've got to be sure that it's written in such a way that it's not intended to sway the vote. It's got to be a very neutral tone. So Public Safety would like Select Board's approval to have that go forward. Once they've finished their drafting, they would put it through Scott. Scott would put it through legal counsel, and nothing would be given to Jen to stuff envelopes with on the tax bill until it was approved by legal counsel. But since we won't have a meeting before she needs to do that, we won't have a formal select board meeting. We might have another finance meeting, I'm not sure, but we won't have a regular select board meeting before the 17th. So I'd like to see if we would be in agreement to theoretically vote to allow an insert to the tax bill regarding public safety building to be included in that.
I have some questions. Who is going to be the initial drafter of the information?
The co-chairs.
The co-chairs. Secondly, you didn't mention this, but you probably did mean to mention it. Will that include dates and process, such as going before town meeting and then going to the ballot and percentage, or, is it simple majority versus 2/3? I urge very strongly that the very specifics be put in there.
Right. I think so, yeah. There's enough room on both sides of a paper, and they've got, it's going to be similar to other fact sheets that were handed out probably several months ago now, but just updated with information that we've gained so far from the architectural company that we're working with, and obviously some updated facts and figures in terms of costing implications. So I'm asking you to sort of approve a blank slate. I don't have it as a draft, but I know that nothing can get forward, and I know Scott has made the point many times to the committee that this has got to be very, very neutral in its tone, and legal counsel would obviously weigh in on that even heavier. So before that happens, it can't get into the tax bill. But we were just trying to save postage as well as take advantage of an existing mailing, which can be done. So
I move that the select board approve the creation of and insertion into the tax bill of information regarding the public safety building and the opportunity for the town to vote.
All right. Any questions?
No, it's good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, thank you. I will let them co-chairs know that, Chief Ellsworth and Christina Madsen.
Photographs.
And then,
Usually photographs don't lie.
then we have a couple last things. Minutes to approve on February 4th. We have minutes on the select board for February 4th, if everybody's had a chance to read those.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from February 4th for the select board.
Okay. Can I have a second? Second by Stephen, okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, minutes are approved. And our clerk will sign those when they get to her. And then we have just one other thing, a personnel form. We have, this had kind of come around, but we hadn't formally acknowledged it. Fire department has got a personnel request form, a personnel requisition form to start the recruitment for 2 full-time paramedic firefighter positions. This has come about finally now after they've done their compensation plan for the fire department, and that's allowing now some real facts and figures for them to go out and try to do some recruiting on this. So there is a PRF in front of us, and I would just like select board's approval to approve approval for the PRF on the 2 full-time positions that had been approved at town meeting last year, I believe it was, for 2 paramedic firefighter combinations.
I move that we accept the PRFs for the 2 full-time positions for paramedic / firefighter.
Okay.
Second. You
All
got
right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, it is, okay. Scott, old business, I'll let you take up whatever you may know on that, and then we'll...
Railway sewer, the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, we're trying to get a meeting with Ty and Bond in early April, right after a special town meeting. The ADA door openers, we finally got the tax exempt through the business, and we're gonna be ordering that as soon as the debit card is loaded. And the
Hazard mitigation plan?
we had our final meeting,
Okay.
so we should be getting a draft final report. I'm not sure how long you said, it'll take a little while.
Might be a
because we're in
couple
the
months,
back
I
of
think, before she gets
Yeah.
it to us, I think.
So once we get that, we'll have to have another public hearing, probably in the same format as before with the select board.
Okay. And railway sewer next steps, anything?
Nothing on those.
Okay. And nothing yet on the broadband committee charge either. We've got to get back onto that. And capital asset planning as well. So we've got things that are hanging out there that we've got to nail down for sure. We have our calendar, just our next select board meeting should be March 18th, unless we know that we've got something happening on March 11th, which I'll leave that to Scott maybe to tell us later on. But if not, I think that's all we have for our regular meeting, and we will then just move into, almost on time, our joint meeting with the Finance Committee to look at the next group of budget presentations. Tonight we'll have the town clerk, Concom, Housing Authority, town administrator / select board, and the treasurer regarding our debt and our insurance in particular. And then once we're done with that, select board will go into executive session. Okay. So with that, would Finance like to call your meeting to order?
Yep, so we have a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order at 7:24.
Okay, thanks very much. All right, so first up, I think, is town clerk, Lucy?
Do I need to?
Might just come on up and have a seat at the table so you can be a little closer to the microphone. Hey, Bradley. Check.
Come put here because you all have the printouts.
Yeah, so we've got it in our packages, but Scott's going to put it up on the screen here too, which is very helpful.
So for the town clerk, there isn't much to the specific daily operations of it. A lot of it is separate from the elections that Lucy has to do. There's 2 people in the office. There's a part-time person, non-benefit eligible, and then you have the town clerk themselves. We have the salary adjustments for those 2 positions. And then for the operating expenses, we have the regular office expenses, everyday stuff, you know, toner, office supplies, Ecode 360, things like that, that are incorporated into that. And then we have the election registration expenses as well. So it's about a little over $9,000 for each of those. And for the election wages, Lucy is requesting about $5,500 for the upcoming year, so we might have a few special elections next fiscal year, so.
Well, the special town meeting is gonna cost money for
Yep.
workers, and then if we have a special election, we're gonna have to pay for ballots and workers, so, yeah.
So we have there's no other state elections at all this year. We've got just our town election in May, and then theoretically a special one sometime in the fall, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And besides elections, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen my narrative, but it's not just all about dogs and marriage certificates and death certificates, and I do a lot of other stuff.
Right.
You know, Jen asked me today for stuff for Zero College Highway, and I researched it and gave her all the work that she needed today without hesitation, so.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've got the budget narratives there too. So, yeah, we really thank people for taking time to do budget narratives this year. I think that's really helped us understand things a little bit better. One of the things I know that we've got to, and you and I have talked about it, is just keeping up with our famous E-Code 360 people and getting things, just making sure that either they're billing us on time, and it's an annual maintenance fee if I
Which I can tell you that I talked to them today, again, and each time we do a supplement or an addition, it's gonna cost between $1,895 and $2,500 for the supplements to be added onto the system, onto our website, and for them to print out 3 copies.
Okay. So that's not per bylaws, like if we gave them 5, it's that fee for the package?
Right, exactly, yes.
Okay.
But then there's also the $695 fee that we pay annually that's gone down. First it was $11.95 and then it went down, now it's $690. It's gone down each year, so,
okay.
But that's why I put it into my budget, so in case anything comes up and changes are made, they raise their prices, then
Right.
we have it.
I think our challenge is, especially like with bylaws at town meeting, we always have to wait at least 90 days,
Yes.
right? And then this year has been, even more of a challenge, but for a variety of reasons. But we know that we've got some that maybe weren't posted before.
Yeah, she texted me, emailed me today and said that they are submitting them, they're working on them.
Okay.
And I said, go ahead.
Okay. So any that we do, say we've got these couple at special town meeting, we might have a couple more at annual town meeting. It would behoove us to wait to give those to her
All at once.
all
yes,
at once. Okay,
definitely,
that's what I
yeah.
want to understand.
After they're approved at the town meeting, it's up to the Attorney General to.
Correct, yeah.
The Attorney General is working on one from a year ago
Yeah.
for the zoning, and so,
Yeah.
once they make the changes, they have to
Right.
start us. So.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay. Any questions, comments for Lucy? Yeah. Dan, go ahead.
On this page, I would wonder if the second line is low for 9,000, where the actuals from 2023, 2024 are above that. But also
It is low.
Yeah.
It is.
What's changed?
Well, election. We had a national election.
Oh, that's why,
Yeah.
okay.
But not 2 years,
No.
both years.
The state was before,
We had
right?
state.
It was
Okay,
state.
so we're not expecting any major elections this year.
No.
We don't know.
No.
Unless, something from Boston comes. In 2020, we weren't expecting Peter Kokot to pass away.
Right.
So, but we had to have a special election in March for that.
Correct, yeah.
We had 4 other elections after that. So,
So if it were for the elections, it kind of drops back down to 9,000?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. And then the other
And
ones,
you do get some reimbursement from the state.
I do get reimbursement for postage fees, but it depends. The state picks and chooses what they want to reimburse us on. So I have to do a survey every year that we have elections that says how many workers we had, how many hours they worked, how much they're paid. Did we have police detail? Did we have
Right.
how much we had in postage, how much was mailed out, how much was mailed back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
the other ones, the first line, it seems like maybe it's higher, right? Because it's only costing about $1,500 in 2023, 2024?
Well, the census, we have to mail out, and then when people don't respond, we have to do a second mailing in June for confirmation cards. Every year we have to do that.
So there's more things happening this year in that column.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
I stepped out a moment. Do you charge fees for anything, for example, marriage licenses or
Yeah, we
requests?
do. Very low. They're $10 for a certified copy for a death certificate, marriage certificate, birth certificate, $10 each. You know, other towns charge 15, some charge 20, we charge 10 for each copy. So. And then we charge $25 for a burial permit that a funeral home will have to ask us for if they need it because the person passed in our town. So. I mean, it's pretty clear. The office supplies, we go through a lot of envelopes because we get certifications from the state every day, from the RMV, when people go to change their, change their license, renew their license, go to a state agency and they sign up for Mass Health. We're always notified of a certification, which is for us to recognize whether it's a duplicate person, the same person just doing something different, changing their name. But we have to mail out a letter every single time per the state. So we go through a lot of envelopes.
Okay. Any questions, comments from finance at all? No? Okay. Pretty straightforward?
Pretty straightforward.
All right. Thank you, Lucy. Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks,
Lucy.
All right. If anybody else has any other questions, any other time, just shoot me an email or come see me. All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the message. Can't believe it.
All right. Next up, Conservation Commission. I think I see a couple of people. George Russell? Yep. And Kathleen Haley? Yep. Yeah, good. Hi.
Kathleen Healy, the treasurer of the Conservation Commission.
Right. Very good. Yeah. Okay.
So again, it's a pretty straightforward budget. They're requesting a $6,000 increase for their operating expenses, and that's things like operating expenses, fees, some other things. And then the personnel services, where the bulk of the money is, the conservation agent. It's a part-time position. They're looking to increase it from 16 hours a week to 18 hours. The other part of that is it's currently funded half by ARPA funds, which will be expiring for next year, right, Riley?
We fully went through the conservation agent project, so now we're going on to the general fund.
Okay, so no more ARPA.
ARPA funds are done?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would have to be fully funded from the general budget for FY26. I'm just curious, would it be possible for some of the fees that you collect, like the revolving fees, to put that towards the administration costs? Could we do that?
There was a revolving fund.
So I'm just starting to, it was art, big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
It was art before me. Sorry, can you repeat that question again? So
I'm not sure how much the account has, but with the fees that you charge, there should be a revolving account
Right.
that you can tap into for administrative costs. That's right, Bradley? Right? So I'm wondering if you might be able to use some of that to offset it in the upcoming budget.
Well, we kept it level. It's possible, yes. The filing fees that we collect from permit applications can be used for the Conservation Commission to, quote, carry out its duties under the Act, unquote. And yes, it could be used for salaries.
Okay. For Kathleen's benefit, we did approve the new conservation fee schedule tonight, before you came.
Okay, got it. All right, thanks.
So,
Can I ask a general question? Are there other expenses that the town had that were funded by ARPA over the years that all of a sudden the money's gone and we're still trying to maintain the expenditures?
there's two that I'm thinking about. Well, there were three. Two anyway. So the conservation agent was partially funded through ARPA. There was a
COA?
planning board consultant funded through ARPA. There were three new teachers up at the Norris School for neurodiversity in particular. Those have finished, and they're carrying on that cost themselves now. COA was, that wasn't our ARPA, that was Senator Vilas's ARPA. That wasn't town ARPA.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't the town ARPA money, that was from a state earmark from Senator Vilas. So that's more for program though, it's not for salary, and that's still ongoing, they're still spending that. Those are the only things that were salary related that come to my mind that are kind of continuing, and or now they were partially funded by ARPA, and now it's up to us to figure out where the money's coming from. So I know the school has moved on to including that in their budget now, as these positions are more permanent with them. So, yeah, we tried not to do too much.
There are no examples where we stopped spending the money, though.
Not that we stopped spending it, no, but there's very few that are still ongoing. I mean, many of them have finished the money per the project that was awarded.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's project related.
Yeah, so many things have been completed and they've turned in their reports and they're done drawing down that. And in a few cases, there's some balance of the ARPA money that was awarded to them. And that's what Bradley and I continually try to figure out. And we're still not quite understanding, I think, where we can put that money. Because it came in as ARPA funds, and now that, if we've been able to have a little bit of excess, we don't know if that has to be returned or where that has to go. So that's the question that I don't think we've gotten any guidance from the feds or anybody else about that at the state or anybody at this point in time. So we're being cautious about where to put that. But yeah, so there's a couple that are like salary related that do pose some issues. So that's why we tried not to do too much in terms of salaries, because that really is
It's kind of a little bit of a trap.
Yeah, it is a bit. I mean, it was a stopgap kind of measure, but it has consequences later on. Yeah.
The follow-up question to yours, maybe it would help in this process while we're walking through these. We seem to reflect on costs, but not so much the sources of the funding. So these budget overviews, maybe something to add to it would be where that fund is coming from, the money is coming from, such the variance right now just shows up as a very small variance, but really it's going to be a large variance to the town because we don't have the ARPA funds.
Right. So right now, it's coming from the general fund right now already, right?
Yep.
I see.
Yeah.
My apologies.
That's where it's
But
coming
that's a
from.
good point. If it was different funding, yeah.
This is what the town is going to spend, right? The way this is set up.
Right. For example, we're going to have a separate section for offsets in the revenue part, which I can actually bring up. So, like last year, we got a little bit of confusion with the $175,000 communication grant we got for the police department, because that's going to be stepping down year after year. So one thing that we wanted to make sure is that when we use grants or revenues or other sources, that we include that in.
We note it
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once if for example, if we use like the cemetery, we'll put that in there rather than funding from the general fund, and we'll do it from if we can use like the revolving fund from Concom, we'll put that in there to offset it.
Or how about using money on deposit? Like in some cases, the expenses might exceed the revenue, but you're going to use some of the money that's on deposit to fund this particular year. And I think we heard that with cemetery. They had tons of money in the bank.
And that was in their
in various accounts.
Right,
was that a
exactly.
revolving fund? I forget on theirs too.
Their interest fund.
Their interest
and their
It was
plot
like
fees.
over $200,000 or something.
So we would offset. So if we don't take it from the general fund, we would offset, or if you approve it, then we would offset it with those types of funds. If we don't take it from the general fund.
Can I ask a question? What about the forestry fund, forestry account? Like, I know that's money that we get from forest cutting. I know that has quite a bit of money in it.
Right.
We're going to be offset with that.
Not for salaries, to my knowledge.
We have to look into it a little bit more and see what the purpose of the revolving fund was for.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. Was only done a couple years ago at town meeting. My recollection was that it was to be and I think it was in something we looked at tonight, was for the management of conservation properties. So that was a lot more ensuring that, if there were some trees that needed removing perhaps, or something something had happened and maybe there's like a few years ago, we had this terrible storm over at Manhan Meadows, right? And we had trees all over the place, and we had to spend time at least getting them down because there were several widowmakers and whatever else. It could be maybe something like that. I think part of it was supposed to be for trail maintenance, but I'd have to go back and look at how that was crafted in the thing. I don't think it can be used for salaries, though, in my recollection anyway.
So the trail maintenance would be very helpful for us because, for instance, the Southampton Trailblazers just got approval to put up a bridge in Alice Brown.
Okay.
They want to put up signs about, no dumping, no whatever, mark the trails. To use it for equipment, quote unquote, like that would be extremely beneficial.
So it looks like there's only one general conservation revolving fund that has the 4222 in it. And then the rest of them, I'm assuming, have restrictions on what it can be used for.
Just from my knowledge, there's a bunch of different funds around conservation protection areas of monitoring.
Yeah, the Red Brick Estate is a monitoring one that's a requirement, right?
Yep.
The Hazel Young Memorial Fund has got to be tied to the Manhan Meadows. That's the Hazel Young Trail. The Wildlife Fund, that one I'm not aware of at all, honestly, on that one. The Mass Manhan, that was actually a grant to Concom for the, I think that was for the bridge that never got finished before it expired because of the waterways permit and all that stuff. So this is money that probably is not, I don't think we received it up front. This 42,000 is money that is not available to us. I think we would have gotten a grant for 50,000 and we would have only spent a portion of this. And then because it's a reimbursable grant, my guess this may show as something, but I don't think it's actually money that we have. Because it's very rare that we would get money up front for an entire grant. Usually it's all reimbursable. So my thinking is it was a $50,000 grant and we've probably spent 7,000 or 8,000 of it toward that bridge scenario with Collingswood and various other studies that you all had done. So I think the 42 looks like it's a balance, but it's not money that we've ever received. Okay, so it's not ours. The state never gave it to us because we didn't turn in any receipts to spend it, is my firm belief, but we can double check that, Bradley.
Is that actually a -8 then?
Huh?
Is that actually -8?
No, I mean, we spent, and say, if it's following my reasoning here, we would have spent 7,000 or 8,000, and that was justified. The state agreed to it, and they reimbursed us. So we would have had, we had to pay it up front, and we get reimbursed.
So we spent 7,900.
Yeah, so something like that, yeah. So I'm thinking this is the balance of the grant that never was able to be spent.
It's, according to Bradley, the other day you sent it to us, and it was 105 in the deficit, like a deficit of $105 for the Mass Manhan match.
Well, there were two grants. So one was for the trail work, I think about 50,000, and another one for the bridge. So they're two separate grants, two separate years. I believe it was phase 1 and phase 2.
Oh yeah, this was the phase 2.
Yeah.
So the bridge, we did pay for the engineering for the actual bridge itself, and we've sought reimbursement, so hopefully we'll get that $2,600 back.
So there may be a little bit more to go on that, but I think this is money that the trail work in phase 1, I believe, was probably spent down. Because that was rerouting the trail, that was putting in the bog bridges, all those kinds of things at Manhan. Yeah, and taking out the old bridge, right, and whatever else was done, and the and so this is the second grant for phase 2. I'm pretty sure. Okay. And then the mitigation funds, that was funds received from the state. I'm not sure what that was due to some wetlands issue up behind Big Y and the church or something or other up there, I believe.
Eversource.
Yeah. Might have been.
The Eversource one is down near Westview.
Oh, no, Eversource was something else, yeah. But this came about, and this was, I don't know, something that whoever was in violation had to do something to remediate it. And the town was going to benefit from whatever they were supposed to do. How this one can be spent, I don't have a recollection of it myself.
Art was saying that it is typically spent for invasive species management.
We had allocated for invasive species, and also it was originally thought to put a bridge in the Zipta farm property where there's this where the culvert, remove the culvert, and then either backfill with stone or something. That it fell through for some reason. We couldn't do that full part of it. That's the history. So you learn these things and have these conversations.
Yeah. So a couple of these, may have some restricted things in terms of what they have to do, but your main local fee one is the one that you definitely have access to for, various things.
Can I ask a question here? Regarding the forestry one, did I hear that there's payment for approved timbering operation? Is that going to the Conservation Commission?
Yeah.
Is that the forestry down here, like number 6? And how is that determined? And when? And is there like a paper trail?
The forest management?
Exactly.
One that's approved by DCR.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's chapter lands that are in forestry, chapter 61.
Well, it could be any forestry.
It could be any, it could be private forest. So how is that determined? Like, does somebody say, I want to cut down 15 trees, and they come to the Conservation Commission?
No.
How does
This
that
is
work?
conservation property.
It goes to.
Oh, it's strictly on conservation property.
Yes.
Resources.
That's an important point.
No, this got started with, I believe,
I see.
the conservation property up on the mountain. There was a couple from probably 3-4 years ago.
Grand Mountain.
They had the Student Conservation Commission come in.
Now I know what you mean.
Working on trails, but the whole, that was one of the first cuttings that was done, and it came to town meeting to establish a conservation forestry fund to recoup the money that the forester had to, when he sold the wood, so he sold the timber, Concom got some money. And I believe there's probably been a second one on Alice Brown now?
Yes.
Beyond that, I'm not aware, but that's where that happens, is when it's decided that there needs to be a management plan on one of your conservation properties, not
important.
individual people.
Because the assessors are contemplating stumpage fees on other properties.
Yeah, no, that'd be a separate thing.
Different thing.
I think so, separate thing. Yeah.
I just go to conservation. I go to different topic.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts and questions from anybody here on that? Again, looks fairly straightforward.
I do have a question. It sounds like you're presented with opportunities like the trailblazers interested in developing a bridge, or spring comes and suddenly there's an invasive species management issue. This must be a diverse grab bag, but it must be something you wrestle with every single year. How do you fund them outside of that budget that you present?
Well, are you talking about public property or private property?
No, public property. The bridge, the signs, the trail markers that beyond which you have inventory. Trail markers are small, that's in your office supplies, but bridges.
Like, how do you decide which account to use? Or
where do we get the money?
Where do you get the money?
Where does money come from for these unplanned activities?
If it's a very substantial project, it'd have to come from some type of grant source.
Like the bridge.
So it really is, you depend entirely on the special purpose.
If it was something that was relatively minor, relatively being the operative word, and it was critical to the Conservation Commission performing their duties, they could take it out of the Conservation Commission revolving fund.
But I have a partial answer for you.
Authority for that. Absolutely clear. It's the things that would exceed the things that aren't de minimis.
So again, the statutory language is the spending of the funds must be directly related to the commission performing its duties.
That's why for bigger things, we had things like the forestry, the money from the logging, right? That was why we set up that fund. The idea was we could use that for trail maintenance, for things that are a little more costly, but not enough that we ask for a grant.
And yet, it seems money comes in, but not clear money goes out. So that's.
We just talked about a budget. We talked about the bog bridge.
And how would that get authorized?
by the Conservation Commission. They have authority over the funds.
All good? Okay.
But I was going to add something, that a few years back, there was the establishment of a 501c3 Friends organization called Friends of Southampton Open Space. It's still there, but we don't have the personnel who are interested in doing fundraising. So there is this already established Friends organization. There has never been an active fundraising thing happening there, which I'm saying this loudly because people are listening as members of the public, that we should figure out a way to get interested individuals to work with the already established Friends of Southampton Open Space to do fundraising, because you can't fundraise. You can charge fees and you can get budget items, but you can't
And get grants.
fundraise and grants, right?
Yeah.
So that's it's a really big need right now for our town.
Yeah, and I think so far the go-to grant has been Mass Trails for the most part. But then I know, like on the conservation property over at Zipta's, that was a land grant, I believe, LAND grant program. And then there might have been a couple of the others might have had let's say LWCF, so Water Conservation Fund or something like
Land
that.
and Water Conservation.
So these would be for the bigger, conservation property type of things.
Well, they are under the Water Commission's jurisdiction, though. The drinking water ones are.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
That's another consideration.
Clearwater had something, I forget what it was.
They had a land grant. That was the land grant for Clearwater Woodland.
Okay. Anyway, so grants are basically your other source of potential income, but it takes time to put a grant together, too, a grant application. Yeah. And they're usually just annual. So yeah. Reggie.
You talked about not getting enough people for the board. That's still a problem.
Yes.
Are you going to move forward with trying to make it smaller?
For instance, last night's meeting, everybody was crossing their fingers because we knew one member wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And we were worried, will we have a quorum?
You have what, 5 members now? Is that right?
We have 5 currently sitting, with authorization to 7.
So what is a quorum then for?
I would like to say it depends who you ask, but no, we have a council opinion that the way our bylaw is structured, the quorum is 4.
And part of that has to do with something in terms of how the matters come before you under the Wetlands Act, if I'm understanding that partly?
Having read the legal opinion, I thought it was the way the bylaw was constructed. Because, for instance, under the open meeting law, a quorum would be 3.
Okay.
But not under the local bylaw.
Okay. So that was one of those that you wanted us to take a look at as well, which we're going to try and work on that before the special, not for the special, but for the annual town meeting. As a bylaw amendment, maybe, yeah.
That's why they suggested change in the bylaw language.
Right, yeah. It's a little complicated because of that legal status there, so we definitely have already got legal pronouncing upon it, but we've got to figure out how we can solve it somehow. Okay. Good. Any other comments, questions for Concom?
Looking forward.
Good. Thank you very much for coming tonight, filling us in. It's very helpful to hear people's presentations anyway and understand what we're dealing with. So, good. All right, Scott, I think you're up next with...
Sierra, do you want Sierra?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see her. Oh, she's hiding behind Dan. I'm sorry.
Sierra doesn't have a technical budget, but as we found out this afternoon, she wants to maybe do a little presentation.
I did not even see you sitting there.
I just wanted to come say hi to you guys. Thank you.
You were just bored and needed to come and have a little...
Yeah. You know?
All right. Sierra Simmons, Housing Authority Chair. Yes, ma'am.
So, when we met to talk about the new budgeting process, Scott encouraged me to fill this out, even though we don't have any budget requests, just to have transparency for the town so they can see what the housing authority is doing. And so I did want to talk a bit about the work we're going to be doing and where the funding sources are coming from that are not this. Okay. So we're still working a bit on, we're almost done with the 354 College Highway property that we're developing for affordable housing. We've been spending down the CPA funds that we appropriated for that at the town meeting. And that's going to be, we have plenty of money in there to cover the rest of the process, and we're almost done, hoping to have an RFP out in the next couple of months for that. So it's been a long time coming. There's been a lot of things we've had to learn about the site to prepare it, but we are finally seeing the end in sight on that. We're also psyched to be part of the planning for Zero College Highway. So we are crossing our fingers that there's going to be a part of that property that's designated for housing. And once that does happen, we've been talking to MHP, the Mass Housing Partnership, which is a state agency that does all sorts of free stuff, and they're amazing, in case y'all didn't know. And they have this awesome opportunity where once a piece of land has been designated by town meeting as for housing, we have $35,000 to spend on them, or $35,000 worth of their support that we can get. So they can, it's almost like in-kind support, except then once we get a housing RFP, it would be built, the cost would be built into that, so the developer would have to pay it. But the things that they can do basically runs the gamut of everything we could possibly need. So they can do surveys, septic capacity, bedroom capacity, due diligence, wetland engineering reviews. They can help us create the RFP. They'll give us a scoring matrix. They can support our additional community engagement that might be needed beyond what's already been done. Concept plans, some basic feasibility. So all of that can be done without having to request any money from the town.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's about it. Didn't want to keep going for too long.
As a select board representative on the housing authority, I'd just like to recognize the Sierra's energy and the enthusiasm she brings to the role, and it's really helped to continue to move these projects forward. So thank you very much.
Aw, thanks, Dan. Love having you on the team.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't know where that other property is on College Highway. The first one you were talking about?
354. It's
354?
a little past, if you're coming down this way, it's a little past the country club on the right.
Okay.
So,
Heading toward Westfield,
yeah.
Right where the speed limit changes.
Okay.
So you pay attention.
To 65?
Something like that, yeah.
When you see it on
The unofficial one, yeah, the unofficial one. Yeah, and it's basically recognizable. There's a kind of an iron gate, right?
Yes.
It's,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a gate there.
So there's nothing there now?
There's nothing there now.
Right there.
We just had an environmental site assessment done, no problems.
Yeah.
We went through a Concom hearing to reclassify an area that was like on the line of being whether it's a wetland or not. And we're moving right along.
And what do you hope to put there?
One affordable house. One unit.
Yeah. How many acres is that?
It's like 1.3, and we can fit about a 3-bedroom on that. But one is not a lot, but it's better than none, which is how many affordable housing units we've created in the last, 10 years. So it's 100% increase in our past
Good way to sell it.
And home ownership is a much more rare type of project for affordable housing. It's usually a rental, but it can create more stability for people who are trying to sort of move up in the world. So it's a good thing to have.
Could this possibly be a duplex at all? Or?
We did consider that. That was our initial hope. However, when we spoke to Habitat for Humanity, which is really the only local nonprofit developer that does projects in this area that are this small, everyone else is looking for larger projects. They are interested in this project. I've been speaking to them regularly. They said they do not prefer to do duplexes for homeownership because it requires you to have a condo agreement, and it requires both sides to figure out what we want to do with the property, and so it just doesn't create as much of a sort of, autonomy and
it's a bit more complicated.
self-empowerment, and it's just extra stuff, and then they have to, I think it's more oversight on their part, so since they're our most likely developer, we're like, okay. We could still put in the RFP the option for 1 to 2 units in case someone comes out of the blue and is like, let's do 2.
Okay, good, no, that's fine.
This is also right next to conservation property, right? It's next to town-owned, it's called the Lyman Family Conservation Area. I think it's a little to the south of it, and very good, thank you. I love this map expertise that we can get. And there's something else I was going to add to this.
So if it's for sale, will it have deed restrictions? Is that how it would be sold?
Yeah, exactly. And once this property goes into the hands of the nonprofit developer, the RFP includes handling all of that. So they have to deal with the sale. There's all these rules about how you market it and make sure the right people get it, and the deed restrictions. So they're going to have to handle all that. which is good because we're a volunteer board and we have no expenses.
There you go. And while you're on our volunteer board, you have 4 current members. We just picked up a resignation tonight.
Yes.
So is that one empty slot now?
We have an opening. Would love any of y'all not on enough boards yet?
Yeah, right.
Anyone listening, please join us. Bradley, hop on the committee.
Yeah, and this has to be an elected position, right?
Yes, I believe. Well, right now
You guys are
our
all
appointed
elected, right?
position is.
I mean, it could be appointed
Ann.
until the election, but the election's
Yes.
coming around the corner, right?
Our appointed position right now is Ann, and she's going to go for an election. So I think we could have another state-appointed person.
Someone started expressing an interest by the time we got around to elections.
But it's, I mean, we're gonna have the special town meeting, right away, and then in May will be the annual, so.
If anyone is interested, we will knock down all barriers to get them on this
Yeah,
committee.
I mean, the goal would be to get on the ballot and have it as elected position.
Yeah.
Maybe mention the housing trust, which we have a representative from.
Well, we've still gotta get that lifted up yet.
Not yet,
It's not ready yet. We've had 2 interest people, and we don't have a 3rd person yet. So, we gotta work on that too. It's on my list, believe me.
That must be a long list, Chris.
It's getting longer every day. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Sierra. Appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right. All right. So between Scott and Jen, who wants to go first?
I can go quickly. So for the town administrator budget, there's going to be 3 different parts. The first one's the actual town administrator office, and that's comprised of myself and Judy. I am requesting Judy's hours go from 16 to 19, not above 19. We tried to do it last year, but some things got mixed up in the budgeting process. For operating expenses, we have $500 for the town report printing, and then administrative expenses, not that much, but things like paper, office supplies, dues, going to a conference. So outside of personnel, it's a little over $2,000. So that is our budget for the actual town administrator office. One thing that we're doing this year is to try to consolidate things like shared resources, shared expenses, so it's a little bit more easily viewed. So we did a shared information technology and a shared maintenance. If we look at the information technology, so we looked at combining townwide software or services that are used by everyone, so not just one single department, but things like Nearmap, which is used by highway, assessors, treasurer's office, planning board, exactly. And put those into one so it doesn't count necessarily against one specific department's budget. We have the IT capital, which is just using for upgrading hardware, things like laptops, routers, things like that. Communications, which is our VoIP telephone, which we cost probably about around $12,000 a year, I think. Bradley, would you? I forget offhand. Our internet costs, which we use through Charter, and then our Code Red, which is our reverse 911 system. Our webpage hosting is a little over $4,000, and this year we put a small amount of money for support services in case we do need to use someone, if we don't volunteer their time that has a technical expertise. We could actually come to an agreement with them and give them a rate, a little bit of money for the time that they put towards that. We also have software licenses, which is probably the biggest one that we put towards town, and that includes Microsoft 365, and I'll show you how we break that down. We have Vadar, which is right around, with the additional licenses, yearly it was around, I think 16, or is it 22?
Very sure.
Yeah.
We paid a $60,000 bill.
Right, for the setup, so yeah, I do have that. And then we have $12,000 for the Nearmap.
With the Vadar, is Harper's figured in there too, the payroll?
Harper's is just in the treasurer's department. Budget.
But I'm wondering if you pulled up the other software license from the water department, and that's the ESRI ArcGIS license. And I think it's a couple of grand.
Oh yeah. They're paying for that out of their enterprise fund though.
Yeah. They're paying that out of the enterprise. Okay.
Yeah.
What about the hosting fee for the quote-unquote town GIS. It primarily feeds tax assessor data, but a whole lot more. Yeah, there's a fee paid to Ty and Bond. And of course, it starts with Ty and Bond taking our latest property transfer
Well, it's the
data.
assessor's mapping, right? Isn't that under the assessor's budget?
Yeah, we do, it's in our budget.
Question why, when it provides utility to the whole town, like trash pickup?
Really?
I can't hear you.
Don't know.
We don't have trash pickup.
That was the town administrator's example
Oh, yeah,
of
that's
the
a good
important
point,
shared
Jen.
service. You gotta follow his presentation.
So your question is why the tie and bond mapping for assessors is not part of the overall IT budget? Is that your question?
That's the second one. The first one was the ArcGIS license. And, you know, yes, enterprise fund can pay the bill, but I'd look at whether it has greater utility to the town.
It might, but when you're trying to get down to nickels and dimes of where we have to spend money and we've got another source that can afford it,
So,
I think that would be my answer. But
So go to the question that you well formed.
so
The hosting fee with time bond.
I think that's under the town maps line item with the assessors.
It is.
And
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's like trash pickup, it benefits every department that needs information about the geography and ownership
So,
properties.
they might be able
See
to.
if
We
the
can
context
certainly move that,
of
yeah.
natural
Yeah,
resources.
could be able to potentially put that in there.
I'm just trying to follow your lead,
Yeah.
which I support fully.
Yeah, no, we can definitely, I mean,
We
we can
hadn't thought
definitely
about that.
do
I would say
that.
we-
And probably be
Yeah.
the second round when we go through and do the
Yeah.
final movements. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, I'd like to see broader use of it because it is useful in fact, and you pay money
And the vision software is,
related to that.
That's the assessors.
Yeah, that's
I
mostly
actually lump
assessors.
those
Okay.
together.
yeah,
The vision is just for assessors. No
I-
one else uses it.
But here it is.
I'm
for-
wondering if it's expandable, though. I mean, there is other benefits within Vision we don't use. So I just don't know
Well-
if eventually that could become more part of
Yeah.
it.
I guess my one question would be,
Oh, now we're under assessors, I'm sorry. Gee.
yeah, this is,
Titles.
we're back on the assessor. The, okay, the townwide, okay, you were getting to that. The townwide permitting that you're talking about expanding, is that, okay, that's where we are right now?
Yep, the e-permitting, so there's still the $4,000 that we're gonna owe for the building department this year. As we transition to the other model with potentially incorporating the fees, that should be an opportunity to be self-sufficient. We just have to design it, implement it, do all the proper changes. And hopefully we can kind of go for that model, but we still, the new stuff is funded under ARPA for the first 2 years, but not the building department. And they can pay for that usually through revolving funds. But I put that into the information technology because eventually it's going to be a town-wide cost.
So is that one that we need to put aside, kind of like the communications cost for the police department? That we put it aside, knowing that we don't use it this year, but we're building it up so that in a year's time or in 2 years' time, we can use it? Or
If we can do this self-sufficient fee model, we won't have to.
Okay.
So, hopefully.
All right.
And then we have our photocopier line item, which is our yearly lease with a couple of overages that we have if we print too much. But the biggest one is our managed services through Novus Technology. So this year it's going to be about $37,000.
Tech support.
For tech support, yeah. So it does a lot of the stuff that they do. I have no clue, but a lot of security and making sure our network isn't hacked. So they do a lot of that stuff, which includes all the software, all the firewalls. They worked with our EOPSS to do our vulnerability assessment. They've also helped us write, a few grants as well. So we're hoping to expand them into the other departments, our fire department, police, and library eventually. But we have to get the infrastructure set up there before they are willing to take that on because it's very subpar.
Scott, what would be emergency escalation support?
So if we can't do it through, your password, that's not an emergency. So if your password, I have to go to get it reset. If there's the server goes down or we can't access something, they can escalate that into the different steps. So we have Colin, who's kind of our dedicated support person. So if he can't fix it, they have other specialists that can go into that.
Scott, the majority of this IT budget was all individually contracted. Was there any redundancy, or is this just a budgetary exercise?
Just budgetary. There is some redundancy that over the next couple of years I hope to kind of redo things like our cell phones. The Council on Aging has an account, police has an account, each department has an account. I think we can do much better if we combine everything under one plan. So, there are some possibilities that we can do that, similar to what the trash was, although I think Randall gives us a pretty good deal. I don't think he's competing against other departments. So, but things like that, I think there is a way that we can consolidate a lot of that. So this is just our budget planning from Novus Technology, how much it's going to cost. So it's the $37,467 for the base fees, and then our licensing, which is our Microsoft 365. There's two tiers. The first one is our Exchange Online, which is really just an email. So if you just have an email through the town, it's roughly about $90 per year. If you have 365 Premium, which is the Teams where you can share files, you have your email address, you have that special login, access to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, basically everything to the network. That's a little bit under $500. I think it's like $490, $495
per person.
Per year for that. So that is that's the technology, and then we have the maintenance. So we're doing the first step this year for the maintenance. So for the maintenance this year, we combined our custodial services. So we had 3 separate line items for one custodial service. So Dave Wells, who's our custodian, does about 16 hours a week. He goes from town hall to the library to the police station. And then he has 3 separate pay sheets that all have to be signed and processed and everything. So
it's a little efficiency maybe by combining that.
It's a little thing, but I mean, it eventually adds up. But yeah. I want to get down to the point where we have similar toilet paper dispensers, because we have all different toilet paper dispensers and different paper towel dispensers. We have a WB Mason rep coming in, so we can do 5 bulk and have it, so we don't have to do different things. So this is just the first step for that. Eventually I want to consolidate the other things like billing for utilities and things like that. But this is really just for custodial services this year, and waste management from the highway. So let me just bring up the actual budget. For some reason that's not showing up. So we have the personnel services, which would increase the hours to 19 for the custodian. He's about 16 to 17 right now. And that would encompass all the things. So if he has to if the library has an event and he has to spend a few extra hours there, then he should be able to do it. Or if, the salt in town hall and the entranceway during the winter time, he needs to spend a few extra hours here. So it's really based more on needs than actual appropriated time. And then our request for maintenance operations, our town hall utilities, we budgeted the same, we switched to LEDs, so we're hoping that's going to go down. Once we see the actual changes, we'll be able to a little bit more confidently do that, but we do expect that to go down. Waste management, so roughly we between all the departments, it was right around $20,000 that we would give to the enterprise fund. I'm going to talk to Randall about the 26, but we did want to put in a little bit extra money for cleanup this year, dumpster rental, things like additional support to move stuff out. If you've been to our basement, been to the police department, been to the highway department, there's a lot of stuff that we need to, we have a pile of chairs right there that we need to get rid of. So a few thousand additional money just to clean up all that stuff.
Would that be fire department too?
Fire department as well, yep.
So they're not listed there, it sounds funny.
I think he does as part of town hall.
Oh.
I'll double check.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be
maybe,
everything.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then our town hall billing expenses, so our paper goods, toilet paper, paper towels. It also covers our service contracts with Johnson Controls, elevator inspections, our regular maintenance for our HVAC, fire alarm monitoring, as well as maintenance on our sprinkler system, which gets relatively expensive. So that will kind of cover everything for that. And that's that.
So what's our total change by combining it? I mean, we're just moving it into a different place, really, for a lot of this stuff, right?
A question. No apologies for why I'm asking this, but I think that, I personally think there's some deep cleaning really required at the town hall. I will say the assessor's office, I don't think that floor's been washed in a number of years. And I know that the senior center, they arranged for a redo of their floor several months back, and it was worth it, and it's a good idea. And generally speaking, I think this is an important building, and it doesn't represent well our town in the sense of the deep cleaning that's required.
One of the things that we want to do with the additional money for the expenses is we don't even have a tool set in town hall.
We do not have a tool set.
We don't have a tool set.
I mean,
so we have, we want to buy just a basic set of tools just so we can do stuff, get a pressure washer. Dave needs a battery for that floor machine that we're trying to locate, but we canceled all of the agreements that we have with local companies, so we can no longer use our accounts with them, so we have to reestablish stuff with like the Home Depot and Tractor Supply, things like that. So absolutely.
But even a contracted service to do this deep cleaning I'm talking about, like over a holiday period when it would be empty or something.
Well,
absolutely.
Certain offices unlocked,
Yeah.
Does this include select board budget yet or no?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I have to, for the smaller budgets, I think we can probably do that next one.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I do have it.
Because that really is just basically our scribe who transcribes our minutes, and that's basically that. And then we have, sorry?
Is that where the legal fees are aggregated?
No, that's a separate part of his.
Yeah, so that would be.
So this would be our Kathy Ingram, who does the transcribes the recordings for our minutes, and then we usually put in a little bit of money for if we had to attend a conference, MMA or select board association, if there's some travel money or something.
Annual retreat in Bermuda.
There we go. Yeah.
So we did do the same with the shared expenses, which we have the wage adjustments from last year, employment, advertising, postage, our legal expenses, weights and measure contract, our state assessment from schools, state assessments for, I forget what that is, Pioneer Valley Planning, town report, and actually that might have been double. Our insurance, which is going about 3% this year, and then our PEG program for Easthampton public media. So the insurance is the biggest one outside of schools. That includes our cyber, underground storage tank, which went up a little bit this year, our general insurance liability, our Chubb insurance, which covers our public safety, our police officers, which is a special rider for them. So those types of insurances.
Wow. Does your chart of accounts change up to reflect these new groupings? Or is this just the budgetary level?
Budgetary, that's why these two columns are vacant right now.
Yeah.
Or empty. That's where the account numbers are gonna go.
Yeah. So eventually, if we get this approved, this would go into effect for July 1, right? So that would make a new budget structure.
So it's great to budget this way, but if you can't track and report expenditures, it's kind of shooting yourself in the foot. We're changing the process, and I just wanted to check in on that.
Hopefully it's a one-time thing, right? We're going to this change, and then next year you'll be able to see.
Wait till you see how those numbers rearrange and how counterintuitive it is. But
it's going to be.
Bradley's on top of it.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff we have to do clean up on our accounts. There's old vendors that we have like 7 or 8 different Verizon vendors, I think it was, and we really only use 2 or 3. So we have to clean that up. Same thing with our old accounts. So that's one of our goals for this year.
lots to think about.
Is the legal fees, it's only a small increase there, does that reflect our current spending? I know you just had to add some more money in there, but maybe we're hoping that some of the bigger costs that we've had this year, from land acquisition to Board of Health condemned properties, et cetera,
Yeah.
are kind of at a level where we aren't going to be spending as much maybe next year, and then we're
Right.
back to just normal, regular legal fees without special project kind of stuff.
I'm hoping.
Speaking of legal fees, I know there are some towns and cities that have their own legal team or attorney on staff for the purpose of this. Are we there about whether or not we could save money by having a part-time attorney or something?
Not yet.
Really?
Yeah, we're pretty far away. We'd have to have a lot more cases for that. And plus to find us, a lot of towns will have like specialists for litigation, for housing, for real estate. I think it would be almost impossible to find someone competent for everything.
Yeah. It's the advantage of having a bigger firm.
That's true, and they do municipal things.
Yeah. Cannabis, like that's for later
Right.
tonight, very specialized. So.
Okay, is that it for your general budget? All right. Any questions for Scott? How this is laid out?
I think this is a wonderful new way of organizing the budget. It's much more accessible. I think we can govern better. We understand what we're debating and improving. And then I just want to recognize that implementation to make this happen is going to be intense.
Yeah, for sure.
Even tonight, I find it a little difficult to try to track and understand what is a change, what's new.
Right.
It's just moved around, so yeah, I agree.
But I heard Scott say before that the first year is going to be the sort of hardest year, and then a little bit easier as time goes on.
Yep. Okay, let's move to our last one tonight, the treasurer collector, Jen. Where do you want to start? What do we got?
It looks like we're starting under the department budget.
Okay.
So for Jen, the treasurer collector's budget, we have 3 employees. We have the salaries, the treasurer collector and the town clerk we'll have to discuss later on, where the select board wants to move. We're going to do things a little bit differently this year with the annual town warrant. Most towns will actually separate the elected official salaries other than just the budgeted, but we'll have to have a further discussion on where that should be on the scale. So I just budgeted at the next highest step closest to the midpoint for temporarily. Then we also have our operating expenses for the treasurer. So things like our bonds, our training, education, dues, bond council. Bond council comes out of that as well.
Yeah.
Our tax.
Wait, bond council, did you say?
Yeah.
No, they're not. That's not part of expenses.
Oh.
No.
Where do they come out of?
Just when you borrow.
Oh, okay.
Really, yeah.
Sorry. I was just communicating with them. Software support, so this is for the Harper's payroll and our W-2s, our ACA reporting, and then we have our tax title expenses.
Right.
So what rate can you borrow at these days?
It's looking to be, I just asked for you on that question. I want to say around, right now, around 4 or 5%.
4 or 5 or 4 or 5?
It depends. Like, I don't know exactly what rate we can borrow at.
Somewhere between 4
I mean,
and
it
5
changes
maybe.
every day, you know?
Yep.
So.
What would have been like the last borrowing we did? Would have been for the bridge, the Garska Bridge? Was that?
Yeah, so the last one we did was for the bridge, that note, let me see if I have it here. And that was 4.5.
4.5 over what, 20 years?
No, we're still rolling that year to year.
Oh.
We're not able to go out to bond right now because we're not up to date. We don't have up-to-date audits, so we're not able to go out to bond, and so that's something that's really gonna have to be taken care of with all, you know, these new buildings that are going to be built. So we're not going to be able to move forward with that and go out to bond unless everything is up to date. So the audits will have to be up to date. I'm not sure. Right now, the auditors are still working on fiscal year '23.
So who did you borrow for the bridge project? Who's it from? I mean, where's the money from?
I believe that on that one, Greenfield's Co-op might have won that bid.
Okay, so it's like a bank.
So it goes out to bid, and then a bank, different banks will bid on it, and whoever has the lowest bid gets it.
And that was done when? How long ago?
Well,
Because rates were...
A year and a half?
Well, we've been doing it every year.
Okay.
Since,
So that's more of a current rate?
So this, last time we did it was this past June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would have been lower when you first took it out, probably. The rate was very lower when you first took
Right,
it out.
so if we were able to actually, go out to bond, is it possible that we would have had it lower? Yes.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely.
Jen, do you mind maybe talk about the debt service?
Sure, so WPAT, so the bonds, there's 3 of those total. Those are for septic betterments. So that's just money that is borrowed, and then the residents can borrow from that fund if they need to do a new septic at their house, and then they pay it back at 5% interest. There hasn't been, I don't think there's been any new septic betterments yet this year for any residents that borrowed, but that is what we're currently paying off. So Larrabee renovation, that's for this building.
Do you know when that's coming off?
That comes off, the last payment is 2030.
Minus another 4 years.
Right. So that's good with all the new buildings coming up that will probably fall off, in time.
We have our newest one. Our newest one. Zero
Yeah, there's that.
And these are just principal right now. We have another spreadsheet for interest.
Right, so that's just the principal, and that was just the amount that we have to borrow for that land, and I believe we got that by putting out 20 years. We decided 20 years, so. The dump truck, that is from the May 2020 bond issue, I believe. Let's see. Yes.
So these are the ones that are currently on the books in terms of our borrowing?
Right.
And what is our,
What's that?
what is our borrowing capacity?
I don't have that in front of me.
I could better understand this as a bar chart showing when the bonds are mature and done. So we can look at the total.
So Scott and/or Jen sent me this
sent
debt
that, yeah.
schedule that has that.
Can you turn that into a graph? I can't read it.
Well, I couldn't even print. I'm not very good with my cheap little printer at home, but I couldn't even
That's
do
what
the
I'm
whole
looking
thing.
at right now.
Yeah, but it goes through when all the payments, when they end.
Right.
Yeah.
And the rate and principal and interest.
And we may not have a upper limit established until we get further with audits and such things. I don't know. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, we're rolling over in the 2 big ones for right now. Once we get that, we'll be able to long-term borrow for the Zero College Highway.
Yep.
And the, what was the other one that we, Zero College Highway and the
Bridge.
The
The bridge,
million,
right, the
the
bridge,
bridge,
so.
yeah, the bridge, and then, there's also going to be, I know the water department has projects coming up that they're gonna wanna go long-term, so.
Well, the question is, when you get up to tens of millions of dollars, I mean, how does that work? If we went out to the market and said we want to borrow $30 million,
How does it work? Well, we would go out to bid again, so we would go out to bond, it would just be going out to bid. And, I mean.
and right now it'd be more of a short-term borrowing because we can't bond.
Right, so I've been doing year notes and rolling them over every year. It's really not the way you want to do it.
No, it sounds like that would be difficult if
This is more
we're
work
thinking
and
about
it's-
borrowing some real money.
Can I ask a question with it? Are we paying someone to do the audits now? Mm-hmm.
We have an auditor yet, and they're working on it. I think that they're still waiting on information. So,
We're waiting for mostly the school department to close out there.
Is that a line item in this?
that should have been.
In the shared, I think. It was shared.
Yeah.
Was it in your budget, Bradley?
It was.
Oh, I think it was in Bradley's
Yeah,
budget.
Yeah, it was in the accountant's budget.
I think the question I'm getting is there any way we can increase their funding such that they can perform this duty faster?
It's not their issue. They're waiting on the school.
Okay, we're holding off. The school.
They have to close their books in order for them to audit it,
Yeah.
audit the accounts.
I mean, we've already upped the bill on these guys, unfortunately. Yeah, we were down at like 25,000 and we're paying like 40,000 now.
And why can't they close their books? There must be a reason. Staffing or?
The school went through major financial issues, lots of funds that were not clearly spent and recorded up at Hampshire Regional. They've got a couple years of forensic auditing that they're doing to sort things out.
I'm remembering the presentation then.
Like our special town meeting warrant where there's $495,000 that they forgot to collect.
Yeah. So they're working on it, but
That gives you an idea.
we can't speed them along much faster, unfortunately, but it impacts us, yeah. I mean, it's taken our we had a AA bond rating at one point, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I started
Double A minus.
on select board, we had a AA minus or something, bond rating.
Double A minus, yeah.
They're-
We still have that current rating on what we've borrowed.
Right.
So it stays on what we've borrowed, but, S&P has been reaching out to me and they do need the audit, so if they don't receive the audit in a timely manner, they will take that bond rating away.
Yeah.
And we also have our state funding as well on hold eventually.
So our local aid is already on hold, I believe.
It is.
We didn't receive February local aid.
Really?
And the potential for
And I can let you know,
grants?
it usually comes in right at the end of the month, so I'm pretty sure. I think last year, it was February too, where it was cut off because they need to receive the Schedule A by a certain date in January, I believe, or they cut off local aid.
So when does this become a cash flow problem?
It didn't at all last year. I don't suspect that will happen, but I mean, hopefully we're going to have, the books closed and I don't know where.
The goal was to have it by a special town meeting. Unfortunately, we were not going to be able to make that, but I think last year we did it literally hours before annual town meeting. We should be able to do it far ahead by that time.
We are not going to wait until May again, absolutely not.
Can I just get a clarification of the local aid was just recently suspended?
Correct.
So last year it wasn't a cash flow issue because we had those funds.
It was suspended last year too.
It was?
Yes.
For how many months?
Bradley, do you remember how many months local? It was it was at least 2 to 3.
Yeah, it was up until May when.
Yeah,
we
so
closed.
it was suspended for 4 months then.
So, March, April, anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand.
At least, I'd say about 3 months probably.
But if we're always late, are we going to have problems borrowing long-term?
Yes.
If we never catch up?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a really big issue if we're talking about borrowing a significant amount of money.
And unfortunately, our budget is so dependent on the school. I mean, we've got, the biggest chunk, obviously, among all the towns, is for Southampton,
Well,
it's the
it's
school
not
budget.
just that we commit the dollars, we rely on them to provide the accounting. And that's
Exactly.
where things got really tough.
Why don't we withhold our contributions until
We
they
did
get,
last year.
until they get the books?
A couple years ago, yeah, we did. Yeah.
We got really
Yeah.
grumpy.
I mean, it's not acceptable.
They do have a completely new team in. I will say that Don and the superintendent are working. This is definitely their top priority. Absolutely 100% is not only figuring out what they're doing for this fiscal year, but they're also unraveling about 3.5, 4 years of fiscal year entanglements. So they have their work cut out for them.
I think we need to make it clear to them that our local aid has been suspended, and we need, super fast, figure it out. I mean, this has got to be their priority, I mean, truly, because this has got other ramifications that we shouldn't have to suffer.
When we voted to suspend, there didn't seem to be much appreciation for the cash flow problem that was presented to us. It's just,
Yeah, it's a new team in now, so maybe that'll be better
yes,
understood. But
it does feel quite different, but we're not out of the woods,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
a long path.
I know. And speaking of which, I believe there's a school meeting, budget meeting on Monday night up at Hampshire Regional that we're invited to, I think, the 10th.
Oh, really? Okay. I
I'm
didn't see
thinking
that.
so, yeah.
Okay.
But anyway.
So outside of the school committee, are there any mechanisms we could put in place to monitor like their ongoing performance?
No, because we're a regional, we don't really have any direct control over central office. We have more direct control over Norris because we have our own school committee for that. But everything kind of flows through the central office.
And could we make payment of funds stipulated, like, once they dig themselves out, right? Because this obviously was a multi-year problem that it wasn't under your watch, but it went kind of unaddressed, right, for multiple years.
Yeah.
Can the town funding be stipulated on like quarterly reports or some sort of, evidence of timely accounting once they get this repaired?
Our plan was to have monthly or quarterly meetings to catch up and make sure our accounts are in line, so we don't have to deal with that at the end of the year and ship through every month.
Yeah. So do a continual monitoring as you go along during the year. Yeah. We ought to make that a goal for the July going forward period, for sure.
Well, I would say that you wouldn't want to borrow a lot of money if you couldn't bond it for the period, because rates could go up even more, and you'd committed to something that you don't know what the financing costs are going to be. I think it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Is there a risk that because we're doing short-term borrowings that we may not, when we go out for an RFP, that we may not get interested parties? Like, is there less of a capacity to borrow in that kind of shorter duration versus funding?
I mean, I haven't seen that. No.
It's probably reflected in the rate.
Yeah.
Because there's more risk in lending to the town of Southampton without a rating or financials and otherwise.
I mean, we did this and then our unaudited Schedule A and balance sheet from fiscal year 23. So they do have that, but it's just not finalized yet.
Right.
But they're already looking for 24 and the audit hasn't even begun, so. Really, you're supposed to have the audit complete. We used to start the audit in January and it would be complete, by March. You really want the audit complete by the March of the previous fiscal year. So right now, we should really have already closed fiscal year 24 and been audited for it, and that should be done.
And we haven't begun the audit on that yet?
No, it's not, fiscal year 24 isn't even closed yet.
No,
That's where, yeah.
Yeah, right, so they're waiting on the closure, yeah, right. So, we signed the audit engagement letter, that I know. But yeah, okay.
So when is it gonna happen that we get the important report from the school in order to close 23?
That's Bradley in the school.
Fiscal year 23 is closed, fiscal year 24 is a pending closure.
Oh, yeah, I thought, but the audit's not complete for fiscal 23, you just said.
The audit of 23 is still ongoing. There are small items that us at the town hall need to complete, and I believe there are school-related audits also that are pending.
For 23?
Yes.
23. And that, my question is, what do you anticipate is going to be the completion date? Is it soon, or is there some?
I'll have to reach out to
Is there some human that's holding it up of some kind?
There's possibly, I'm one of the humans that are holding it up, but I need help with some requests that I've never done before.
Okay.
That are school related or something else?
They're just new asks from the auditors that I've never done before, and I don't know how to answer their questions. So I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. So, Jen, or keep on going here, wherever we are?
So we were on the dump truck, so that falls off in fiscal year, the last payment is in 2028, if that's, and then, we have the East Street Bridge think that will only be the.
So I have a question for Bradley. When we budget, our total budget, we have interest expense for all these loans. Do we also have the principal within the budget itself? So you've got to pay X million dollars in principal, or whatever it is. That's got to be a line item because cash has to come from somewhere.
Each has a principal account and then an interest account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, that's why they're on two separate budget requests.
Yep. Okay. So then we've got a dump truck and a loader that are there, okay? Yep.
Yeah, so the East Street Bridge, the dump truck and the loader, I've been borrowing for all of those on one note every year and rolling that over. So the dump truck would fall off in 8 years. This will be the second payment on the dump truck. And then the loader, also the second payment, but would fall off in 5 years. Second payment also on the East Street Bridge, assuming that we're going out 20 years. So eventually, like once we go out to bond, that can
change it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you should do the math and see what we would be borrowing at if we hadn't had this problem and bill it to the school. Because it's real money.
Yeah.
Just because of the way rates change.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would be borrowing much at a lower rate if we'd have this all locked in.
So even though you're bundling, to use my term, of those three together, they pull off at different time frames.
Correct.
Even though you got them all together, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the
It doesn't
May
restrict you.
2020 bond too. Most of the May 2020 bond
Yeah.
was for it was for Pomeroy Meadowland, which was through community preservation, and then refunding of 2 USDA loans for the water department, which saved a lot of money, so that's good, but for the enterprise fund. And then 2 other water projects and a dump truck. But yeah, so you go out to bond, and although it's for multiple projects, they'll fall off at different times.
Yes, okay.
So you just changed what you got up there, so that's the
This
interest.
is interest right here.
And the other was the principal.
Right.
And so the total together is 1,785 plus what? Plus
I
362.
don't have a total sheet, sorry.
362 and 1785, so.
4, 5, 40,
Almost.
440,000.
Okay, next up.
Next is our biggest line item, which is employee benefits. So unfortunately this year, you'll see what the biggest one is our health insurance. Unfortunately, we just got word, I think last month, that we're gonna have about an 18% increase for our health insurance. We're self-funded through the Hampshire Regional, what's it called, Hampshire Regional?
Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust.
Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. There are things that we can do to reduce our health insurance costs. Unfortunately, we got it way too late to actually do anything. We can rebargain, we can go out to bid for our cost, we can, join the GIC, we can join another group, we can go out on our own, self-insured, fully insured, we can adjust deductibles or co-pays, but that all takes months and months and months of time to not only go out to market, but negotiate with the unions, and we've already passed the GIC, so you have to let the GIC, which is the Group Insurance Commission for the state that allows municipalities to join, you have to let them know in October. So that's not even an option. So for this upcoming year, I do want to think about getting a broker in to look at our claims, see, maybe even go out to the market individually outside of the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust and see what, potentially our rates could be. We also want to make sure that we audit. I don't know if it's been done recently, but making sure that there's no retired employees or people that should be on Medicare or Medicaid on the list, people that are part-time that may be receiving benefits incorrectly.
There's definitely not any part-time people receiving benefits, and there's definitely not any retired employees on the active plans unless they retired a retired police chief who retires at 55 would still remain on the active plan until they were 65.
Yep.
But there's no one like on our plan that shouldn't be, and even Group Insurance Trust watches that.
Okay, good.
And if there was, they would definitely reach out, and you know they're very careful about that.
Just, I'm always wary of that because one of our neighbors to the south recently had a little bit of an issue with hundreds of employees that they were paying out years of health insurance premiums for. So I haven't had a chance yet to actually dive into that, the insurance component of it, but it's something that we're gonna have to look at this year just because
Sorry,
an 18% increase
There
will
was
trigger something that we have to look at and, look at potential alternatives.
There was an 18% increase to the HMO and a 20% increase to the PPO, and that is a lot. Unfortunately, with Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, they went many years without giving an increase or just giving like a really small increase. And then this year, with all the, I guess, what really hurt them this year were all the weight loss drugs. It cost like, around $5 million, like just in weight loss drugs. I guess that's a big thing now, and they're very expensive. So, unfortunately, after, they try so hard to not give increases or give small increases, but then it's like adding up over time, and it kind of, they almost would have been better off giving increases every year than all of a sudden this one really big increase, because that's hard. And it's even for the employees, because like for instance, my family plan will go up, over $100 a month out of my pocket. So it's a pretty big increase for employees and for the town. But it is really great insurance. It is good insurance.
Might be a little too good. To be honest with you.
To change it would be really hard because we would have to negotiate with all the unions, and I remember when they just went to change, they already went, and Group Insurance Trust itself was changing maybe the co-pays, and it took forever for that process.
We've done it through regional groups though before, multiple times. It's just you got to get organized, you got to get your claims in a row, you got to be able to educate and explain to the unions why. I mean, realistically, $250 copay for inpatient hospital is like 20 years ago. So, I mean, it's really great insurance, but we're paying for it. So,
I know that the prior treasurer did go out and look at GIC and other insurance companies before, but didn't find it to be any better. I'm not sure how that is now, but because that was, over like 7 years ago, but she did do that.
Well, more cost effective or better?
I think she probably outweighed the benefits between the cost and went from there. I don't really know for sure. I just know that
because ultimately insurance is it's just shifting. So a deductible is just cost shifting into the subscriber.
Right.
So the insurance, you still get to go see your doctor. It's just, are you paying $1,000 deductible or are you paying a $50 copay? So that kind of,
right.
And then you have the behavioral issue. Where if you have a deductible, that tends to lower the claims as well. It makes people spend it a little bit more wisely.
PPO, or if it's an HMO, you reduce the number of providers, that also lowers the claims.
Exactly.
And we could also, I think that the employees do value this insurance, which obviously they're going to because it is great insurance.
What is it? Valueless?
No, the employees, it's a great benefit. It is one of the great benefits of working here.
Yeah.
This insurance,
Sorry.
I said value. But
Scott, could you just slide that over so we can see the percentage in the last column, sir?
I think that Scott had other ideas. Obviously you can look to see what else is out there, but Scott, you had other ideas having people sign off, saying,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
we're not going to take the insurance, so we're going to give you out $2,000.
Right. So there are I forget what it's called. It's on the tip of my tongue. There are mechanisms that we can encourage people to leave our insurance by giving them financial value. So usually the GIC does it. I've done it in other communities. So if we have someone that's long-term on our insurance, the town's paying, $20,000 to $25,000 per person. If they have insurance available through a spouse, we might be able to say, well, here's $2,000 if you leave our insurance and go onto the spouse's insurance.
And that can go towards co-pays or something else.
Exactly.
That they see as beneficial to them. If they're not a loss to them, it's just a shifting to a different color.
Although it sounds like our insurance is the best there is, so.
Well, not necessarily, because if you have like a $2,000 deductible and we're going to give you $2,000 towards that, then you wouldn't have to pay anything realistically, because usually you wouldn't have any co-pays. So if you're high use or low use, that might be a really good.
What percentage does the town pay?
70.
But even when you look at like the prescription
50 for
coverage,
retirees.
so who, like, obviously we're a non trust, but who weighs in? Like, do we have input on like the formulary, the prescription list, and that type of thing? Like the one thing that jumps out right is the big cost of these GLP-1s, right? A lot of employers don't cover that. The trust has made the decision to cover that. I'm not weighing in whether that's something we should or shouldn't, but as like members of the trust, do we have a say in that?
So, not really. There's an executive committee for the trust that is made up of 5 members, and they are all from different towns. Our prior treasurer was on that executive committee. And then there's the advisory committee. So the executive committee makes all the decisions, puts forth like what we're going to vote on, what are the new premiums going to be. They're the ones looking out over all of that and making decisions. And by the time it gets to the advisory committee and we do vote, there's really not, everyone always just votes yes. It seems there's not really any. Scott got on last time, and you got on last time to the meeting for the insurance advisory committee, and he did speak against, the increase. But
it was too late at that point.
Everyone goes on there, and it's just.
I was going to ask the same questions, Doug, about the weight loss drugs. I think that's very difficult when you've got some new product that people want.
But then the question is, who is ordering it, and is there any kind of process? For example, if it's related to something like having diabetes, that's different than somebody that doesn't have any secondary health problems, cardiac problems or endocrine problems or something, and they really would like to drop 100 pounds or something like that, and it's valuable, but it isn't. Is it medically necessary?
So we're self-insured, and we use Blue Cross as our administrator.
Yeah.
So if they were fully insured, which is where Blue Cross would make the profit, so they only charge us like 2 or 3% to administer the plan. So if they approve a drug, there's no incentive for them to deny it or approve it, because they get the same amount of money no matter what.
Well, they usually tie that though to existing prescribing policies and underwriting. So like my company is self-insured, but we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and you have a similar rate of denials and requests for like prior authorization.
I would hope so.
Okay.
Question. Do we have the opportunity to impact any of this for this budgetary season, or is this all cost?
We could. So there is.
We're ranting.
I think you've on track here. We're running late here.
So there is the potential of doing an opt-out program where, with the GIC, they do 25% of the cost that they would pay, and so but you obviously have to stay out of it for a certain amount of time. We can think about. The savings that could do. So if there is a potential of someone that could go onto a spouse's plan and it costs us, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to get them off to save $20,000, that's a good chunk of savings in the short term. In the long term, a lot of times when we end the opt-out program, then you have a flood of people coming back on the insurance. So it's something that we have to kind of plan for year after year. So once you're off, we want to try to keep you off.
Maybe we could add this to our agenda over the next year, like this could be a subject we try to improve, right?
Yep.
We're not in the middle of the crunch of the budget.
Yeah, it won't be something we can implement right now for sure. But anyway, so we recognize the increased cost for this coming year. All right, So that's where we are. So.
I can't remember what OPEB stands for.
Other post-employment benefits.
Oh.
Right, so that's for the OPEB actuarial. So we do that every year. You can see like in '23, it was 3,465, and then in '24 it goes down because every other year do they do a full valuation, and then so the lower cost is for a partial valuation.
Okay.
And basically that ends up telling us what our post-employment benefit liability is.
Do we have disability coverage of any kind, short-term or?
So we have the disability coverage that's in our policy for the town, so the town pays that basically out of its, I don't think there's a budget line for it. It's something that I've always thought we should have a budget line for, because if, say, like someone in the assessor's office, for instance, ends up on that plan, and then they're gonna get paid 75% of their pay for 26 weeks, and then you also have to replace them, the budget's never going to be able to cover that, so then we're all, looking for funds, but we've never had a line item for that. But as far as, do we offer short-term disability to employees? Yes, we do, through Boston Mutual and Aflac, but it is fully paid by them.
It's not a group
It's
plan
not.
or anything like that.
It's fully paid
It's
by
fully
them.
paid by the employee.
Oh, so it's an election. You say
Correct.
I want or I don't want it.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and we had looked into probably about 4 years ago now, when John Martin was on the board. He spent a long time looking at disability insurances,
Yeah.
etc. We had various presentations and never came to any good conclusion about how we should handle short-term and long-term disability.
So what is the liability these days for OPEB? It's like,
Gosh, I wanted to say we were
it's like
at like 15.
15
We're funded at the minimum.
million, right?
Million, yeah.
$15 million.
And we're just at the minimum statutory funding level?
Whatever this is.
Which is?
Jen? We're at the minimum for
What's the
OPEB,
minimum
right?
funding for OPEB right now, what percentage? Like how much are we unfunded?
That's what I'm looking for. I don't know offhand, but I have the report. I can send it to you.
Okay.
But are we catching up on that one? We're catching up on one of them, aren't we? Like on the pension? Is it the pension we're paying extra to catch up?
Or was it returns that helped us catch up?
We were still behind, far behind.
I don't know, I think it was Donna that sent me this
I
report
know what you're
about that.
talking, okay.
Yeah, that within a certain number of years, that was gonna be fully
Right.
funded.
That's a state requirement.
Oh, is it a state requirement, so all
That's
towns
the
have to get
Hampshire- That's
there?
Hampshire County Retirement, that's the retirement contributory. So yeah, so we'll be fully funded, as, 2032.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, I remember, yeah.
So we're still going to, have an appropriation that we pay, but it will be
Be
less.
current,
Because,
yeah.
as of 2032, we would be fully funded.
That's good news. It's the other one that we're not really making any progress
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Or nobody's making any progress on, I
Yeah.
should say.
Okay. Good. Is that it for budget for tonight, maybe? Any other
Anything else?
comments, questions?
If you don't have any other questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, now we gotta do all the hard work, but this at least gets the presentations pretty much out there. We got a couple more small ones maybe to do.
I'll try to find that.
This gets most of this.
Thank you.
I feel like the auditors mentioned that as well, maybe one of the presentations last year as they were pitching stuff.
Yeah, we have, yes, I have done those two auditors every year. Yeah.
Good. All right, so, thank you very much. And I think Select Board will actually go into, we're going to make a very short executive session, I promise. But Finance, if you're ready, you could go ahead and adjourn your meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have some business though,
Okay,
too.
sure.
Especially because we've got to talk about meeting again.
That's what I was just gonna ask Scott. So
Yeah.
you need
Yeah.
us to meet before the 22nd?
Yes, and then we have to figure out the next phase 2 of the budgets just to start reviewing it, looking at reductions. We haven't gotten school budgets yet, obviously, so that's the big one. And I have to do revenues as well with everyone. So we'll probably need another meeting just for revenues, special town meeting, warrant, and start looking at potentially reductions in the budget.
So we work backwards. When do you have to post the final warrant articles? Is it like 3 days before the meeting?
Yeah, it's for the motions and everything. So that would have to be a couple days before just to publicize it.
Oh.
What were you doing on Friday, though? You said you had to have the language ready for Friday.
Just the warrant articles.
Just the warrant articles.
But usually we give it a good week at least so that people have a chance to read the motions.
Because we should have the final one maybe before we meet. So maybe we should meet next week sometime. Hey, Scott, could you give me your copy of that side by side with the public safety building and the chart you did?
Do you want this one here?
Yeah, I just need one, so.
Here, you guys, Doug had seen that?
I have another one at home.
Okay, thank you.
Will the other meetings be joint meetings with the select board?
They don't, the one for the warrant doesn't have to be, the budget one's probably easier to do that.
Yeah.
So that might be the 11th then on that one, or?
I think so.
Are we just continuing on Tuesdays, is that the?
Up to everyone's schedule.
Does that work for people, or is that?
Works well for me.
Mostly.
Yeah. So let's assume that we might look at revenues on
Probably next week.
just a joint budget meeting on the 11th, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and just to see where we are. I mean, hopefully we have a little bit more guidance from the schools. That's the big thing, is how much we're gonna have to cut, is dependent on the schools.
Right.
Is it gonna be 200,000 or is it gonna be 600,000? 200,000 I can find right now, not that bad. If it's 600,000, that's a different story.
Yeah. For sure.
So
Okay.
should I warn a meeting for next Tuesday then?
I can't be here next.
Oh, okay.
That's the only day I can't be here.
You can't be here Tuesday?
No,
Well,
but that's.
But we should meet some other time then next
Right, because we
week.
need to meet
Yeah.
first, so I can do Wednesday or Thursday.
Thursday would work for me.
I think for me too. Thursday, how about 6 o'clock here? Okay, and I sent some minutes out for the last meeting. I don't know if anybody
Yeah,
saw
do you
them.
want us to?
I was gonna say, if you guys could.
So that you guys can do your executive session?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. why
All
don't
right,
you
so
go
we're
ahead.
still
Yeah.
in session.
You're still in session, and you can
Moving
turn
out.
it down to the break room or
Yeah.
somewhere, and just finish up.
All right.
But otherwise, we'll plan on a budget meeting, revenue focus on Tuesday, the 11th, and then
That's next week.
whatever you guys are gonna do on your own.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much for coming. Much appreciate it.
Night.
All right, so with that, I would like to, hold on a minute.
Do you need a motion?
No, I do this first. Thank you. We're going to be going into executive session, and the reasons for going into executive session are per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This is related to the Cannabis Host Community Agreement. And also MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body when they'll road property. So with that, I would like to take a motion to close the public meeting and move into executive session.
I move to close the public meeting. Do we do two different motions? Or just one motion and go into executive session?
Okay. Second? Okay, second by Dan. By Dan. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned at 9 p.m.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.